Chapter 43. This money isn't easy to earn. Chapter 43. This money isn't easy to earn. Wondong's car sped on the roads around the mountain. If one looked outside, one would probably be fearful of the car falling off the cliff at any time. However, Wondong drove the car fast and steady. Despite so, many cars on the road saw Wondong, and all stopped by the road, fearful that this madwoman was going to crash into them. Wondong was speechless. Even if Yimo wasn't scared of being in a car going so fast without barricades to protect the car from falling off the road, he should at least open his eyes. However, he actually was quietly sleeping. Were his nerves just thick, or did he trust her driving skills? Wait, did he even know her car skills were so good? In fact, even her heart was pumping, driving so fast on this mountain road. Wondong thought of the moment when she first saw Yimo and his fearless nerves. Wondong finally got to understand Yimo a bit. Using nice words, he could be described as a completely fearless young man. But in a meaner tone, he was a fool. However, this type of people was perfectly suited to her, since she needed exactly this type of people to help her. Otherwise, it would be really hard for her to do the deal by herself. Seeing that Yimo didn't take notice of the car's speed, Wondong finally slowed down. After all, they were driving on the mountainside, and it was quite dangerous going this fast as there were a lot of twists and turns. She would raise the speed again after they got off the mountain. But at this moment, Yimo opened his eyes and asked casually, "How far is it?" Wondong heard Yimo's words and immediately replied, "Around 600 kilometers. Still that far. How long is it going to take with you driving so slowly?" Yimo frowned and said. Hearing Yimo's words, Wondong almost drove the car off the cliff. She thought that she was going fast enough already, but this still wasn't fast enough for him. No wonder this guy didn't talk. He thought she was driving too slow. "We are still on the mountains road. We'll drive faster once we reach the highway," Wondong replied helplessly. Luckily, Yimo didn't continue to talk about her driving speed and closed his eyes to meditate. If Yimo's tone just then really sounded unhappy, she would have thought he was messing with her. After the car got on the highway, Wondong finally raised the speed. Yimo felt that the car was a bit floaty, so he looked at the car's speed meter and saw that it had just reached 200 kilometers per hour. At this speed, it only took them less than 2 hours to reach Yundu. However, the car didn't enter the city and instead parked outside a mansion in the rural district. Yimo scanned this mansion. It looked very grandiloquent, with a cluster of bamboo outside the mansion as well as a huge artificial lake. The yard of the mansion was also very spacious as 7 to 8 luxury cars were parked there, and the grass patch at the front was enough to be made into 2 soccer fields. It could be seen that the owner of this mansion was definitely wealthy. "You carry that smaller case and I'll take the bigger one." After saying that, Wondong got off the car and grabbed the big case from the back. Yimo knew that inside this big case was an AK rifle, while the smaller one contained some information and a model. Yimo looked at Wondong thoughtfully. Being able to own such a huge yard and a mansion on the outskirts of the city meant that this person had not only money but also connections. Otherwise, such occurrence rarely happened. Thinking about this, Yimo took out his beak-shaped hat and shades from his bag and put them on. Then, he grabbed a mouth mask before finally carrying the case Wondong told him to carry. Wondong looked at Yimo's appearance, and her mouth moved but finally didn't say anything. She didn't understand why Yimo would do something like this. In her opinion, Yimo had thick nerves and wasn't the type to think about being hunted because of revenge. However, Yimo did this, and she didn't know what he was thinking, so she remained silent. Yimo's appearance did look really cool, and it gave people an indescribable feeling. "This isn't bad," Wondong muttered and carried the case into the mansion. However, she didn't drive her car in. The 2 guards at the door scanned Yimo, but when the 2 guards saw Wondong coming in, they didn't even stop or question her, much less search her, and just let them in. Yimo's spirit sense range was too short right now, and he could only see 5 to 6 meters from his position. Even that was a bit blurry. Thus, he couldn't check this entire mansion. "Haha, Mrs. One is still looking strong and good after leaving the northern sands. I've been waiting for a long time. Give Mrs. One a seat and serve her tea." When Yimo and Wondong went into the living room, a slightly old-sounding voice appeared. "Tea won't be necessary. I want to finish the deal immediately and leave when I'm done. We won't have anything to do with each other after that. Wendong waved her hand and said straightforwardly. Yemo looked at the person speaking. It was a 50-or-so-year-old man. His hair was a bit white, but his spirit was ferocious and had this bleak killer's chi on him. Although he had a smile on his face, his eyes were very sharp and flickering. This wasn't a simple man and appeared to be a very suspicious person. However, for Yemo, this man should be at most around Wendong's level, or even lower than her, and didn't think of him as a threat. No matter how suspicious he was, it was ethereal and insignificant, like clouds in front of absolute power. There were two men on either side of this person. Unexpectedly, there weren't the people guarding the door that Wendong and Yemo came from. Yemo saw this guy's bleak appearance and knew he wasn't someone easy to talk to. There weren't people at the door, and this didn't match the man's temperament. Yemo scanned with his spirit sense out and immediately found another 4 people. There were 2 at the door, with one squatting on each side, and all had guns in their hands. It was just that the 2 people cleverly used the ping pong one to cover it. The 2 people at the door hid outside after he and Wendong came in. It was not surprising that Wendong didn't notice the people behind the ping pong because it had a lot of holes in the middle which made it see-through, and on top of that, it was hollow at the bottom, so it didn't look conspicuous. The only reason Yemo could see them was because he could scan it using his spirit sense. Although this ping pong looked something like a painting and was hollow in the middle, the side near the interior of the mansion was 3-dimensional. However, because of their careful placement, the people who walked in from the door would only notice an ordinary ping pong. If Yemo didn't have spirit sense, he wouldn't be able to see it either. However, even if Yemo didn't know that the interior side was hollow, he could still see some problems. Wendong probably didn't see it because the side of the ping pong near the door was nailed into the ground. Who would nail a ping pong to the ground in the living room? This obviously wasn't normal. The part of the ping pong that was empty had a person squatting inside it. This person's clothes were all the same color as the ping pong and also had quite some holes in it. However, it was cleverly made so that the person who entered the door could only see a small half. Usually, someone who saw such an ordinary ping pong and could still see clearly the other side wouldn't pay much attention to it. It seemed that Wendong's deal wasn't going to be as simple as he had thought. It appeared that this $50,000 wouldn't be easy to earn. Notes: 1/ping pong, a type of screen that is used for decoration in the Chinese culture. You can search the Chinese characters on Google Image if you want to see what it looks like. Chapter 44. Lethal Trap. Chapter 44. Lethal Trap. Haha. Don't be hasty. Mrs. 1, let's talk about business first. I don't think you would have a problem with that. The man talked slowly once again. All right. After Wendong said these 2 words, her face changed and said to Yemo, "Open the case and let him see." Yemo saw Wendong's face change and immediately knew that she had discovered the people hiding at the side. Although he didn't know how she found out, but since she did, it meant that she had a plan. However, he didn't know if she noticed the people hiding behind the door or the people hiding in the ping pong. Mrs. 1, I know you're strong, but no matter how strong you are, you will need more than 10 seconds to open the case and set up the gun inside. During these 10 seconds, I can kill you many times. Therefore, I hope we don't get impulsive. The man sat down and looked at Wendong in derision. Yemo was also surprised. He didn't know where Wendong got her courage from to deal with this man. It was akin to a sheep going into a tiger's mouth. What does that mean? What's the meaning of you having people with guns standing behind the door? Do you want to break the rules? Wendong asked smoothly, as though she was saying something completely irrelevant to her. Clap, clap. The man clapped his hand and said, Mrs. 1, you truly are as strong as you were before. But now, the rules don't mean much. Come in. Hearing the man's voice, the 2 people at the door came in and held up their gun to Yemo and Wendong. However, Yemo didn't expect that the 4 people behind the man wouldn't raise their guns. Yemo now realized that Wendong only discovered the 2 people at the door and didn't see the 2 people hidden at the ping pongs on each side. Yemo's spirit sense locked onto the fingers of the 2 men at the door. As soon as they would pull the trigger, he would try to dodge it. He wasn't too sure if he could dodge bullets now, and before the 3rd stage, Yemo estimated it to be quite dangerous. Wendong acted as though she wasn't pointed at by a gun. Instead, She took out a timer from her pocket and said slowly, "If you really want to break the rules, then I don't mind all of us leaving together. Indeed, I have a gun in this case, but there is also a timed bomb. Although it isn't very powerful, but it is potent enough to flatten your mansion and more. I think you won't doubt the power of the bomb in my hands." "Haha, Mrs. One, you really like to joke? Jiang Yin, give the thing over to Mrs. One for inspection. And you guys, put back your guns. Don't you know that Mrs. One is a guest?" the man said while making the men at the door put back their guns. He obviously knew what Wendong would do, since playing with bombs was as easy as playing with firecrackers to them. Wendong acted as though this thing didn't happen and just opened the case. When everyone had their eyes on the case, she had already set up the gun in a flurry of movements. Although it wasn't timed, Yemo was sure she didn't go over 10 seconds. Although it was just a few seconds, either out of concern for the bomb on her or because he didn't see the thing Wendong brought, the man's face changed a few times, but in the end, he didn't instructed his men to open fire. However, Yemo knew that Wendong's case definitely didn't have a bomb because he scanned it with his spirit sense before. Wendong had already set up the rifle and pulled Yemo to the side. Yemo laughed bitterly to himself. Even though she avoided leaving their backs to the people at the door, this just left their backs to the people hiding in the ping foam. Of course, the man had a smile on the corner of his mouth and nodded to the man beside him with the case. The man opened the case and walked over to Wendong. Yemo had seen it clearly. It was a case full of US dollars, around 1 million. He cursed Wendong for being stingy. She got herself more than 1 million. Yet she just gave him tens of thousands for payment and still made him subject to gunpoint. However, Yemo also opened the case and pointed the case at the man. At the same time, he picked off some wooden splinters from the wooden chair by his side and split into 8 pieces. He shot one of them to the back as the wooden splinter passed through the hole in the ping foam accurately into the man hiding on the other side. The man's position didn't even change before he was killed. No one saw his movement. The wooden splinter was imbued with chi, and when it struck the man, it just pierced his forehead and blocked his sound cord. For those who wanted his life, Yemo was always merciless. After killing this man, Yemo intentionally walked towards the middle. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to see them clearly with his spirit sense due to the range. Seeing Yemo walk towards the middle, even though Wendong didn't want to, she could only follow behind Yemo. The man with the US dollars walked up to Yemo's case and checked it, while Wendong also had the gun on one hand and took a few stacks of US dollars to make sure. After seeing the contents of the case, the man nodded. The boss smiled and said, "Okay, just like this." After a few words, he actually turned and walked away. Yemo's spirit sense immediately scanned that the other man inside the ping foam was going to pull the trigger, and at the same time, the rest of the 7 splinters in Yemo's hands had already flew out as he pulled Wendong aside a few meters. Yemo didn't understand why these guys weren't afraid of bombs, but it was possible that when Wendong opened the case, he used some instruments to see through it. This Wendong was careless. Just when this man said okay, Wendong immediately noticed something was wrong and was going to raise her gun and shoot. But at this moment, she was pulled away by Yemo. Wendong, who didn't understand why Yemo pulled her away at this dangerous moment, immediately reacted after she heard a few clear gunshots. She didn't even think and raised her gun to retaliate. However, she realized that other than the boss, no one else could stand. What was this? Seeing that the 2 men at the door as well as the 4 behind the boss were all bleeding from their forehead, Wendong immediately understood what had happened. These people were killed by Yemo. Wendong's first thought was that Yemo definitely wasn't a normal person. He actually managed to make her dodge the gunshot while killing at least 7 people in such a short time. If Yemo didn't pull her aside, she was sure she could only kill 6 of them before she was shot. However, she definitely wouldn't have been able to dodge the bullet from the ping foam. God, who is he, and how is he this strong? Wendong immediately found the blood stain on the ping foam in astonishment. Just then, the gunshot also sounded from there. Wendong immediately realized that there was someone inside, and this person was killed by Yemo, thinking that there was another ping foam on the other side. Wendong also looked over. As expected, there was also blood dripping down from there. Immediately, Wendong had cold sweat run down her back. If it wasn't Yemo, she wouldn't even have known how she died. There were two hidden people pointing their guns at her, and she didn't even notice. No wonder she felt her heart was a bit cold when she came in here. So this was the reason. So what if she could drag a few people to death with her? There was the sound of footsteps which had been already heard by Emo as he was prepared to kill with more wooden splinters. But when Dong had already raised her gun and ended the battle in 2 shots, Emo nodded to himself. When Dong definitely couldn't hear the footsteps like him, but she could notice someone approaching, which meant that she was experienced. The boss looked at Wen Dong in disbelief, and his face became paler. He knew that Wen Dong was arrogant, so he set up this lethal trap. However, he lost all his men instead. If only he had known that her bomb was fake earlier, he could have killed her before. Gong Huishan, you wouldn't want to kill me for a mere million, would you? You want to keep the information to yourself? Wen Dong's face immediately became bad and raised her gun, forcing it towards the man. Chapter 45. Who's going to piss off? Chapter 45. Who's going to piss off? Is there any use in trying to kill me? Don't you know that the whole world would immediately know about this, idiot? Wen Dong sneered at this man. "Ca, calm down. Wen Dong, I was not the one who wanted to kill you. It was, however." He didn't even have the time to say who it was before she had already opened fire. "I don't need to know." Wen Dong's face returned to normal as she coldly killed the man with a single shot. Meanwhile, Emo was wondering if Wen Dong would ask him where he came from, but even if she did, Emo wouldn't tell her anything. He just came here for the $50,000 she promised. However, he wouldn't have thought that earning this little money would be so hard. If he hadn't been careful, he actually might have died here. After a while, although he didn't expect Wen Dong to ask anything anymore, instead, she simply said to Emo, "Let's leave. The 2 I just killed were probably the door guard. So now, there might not be anyone left. I will set off a bomb to blow this place up." Hearing her words, Emo wondered where that bomb was. But before he even had the chance to ask, Wen Dong had already taken off a series of bombs from her waist, which shocked Emo. She really did bring bombs. However, it was hung around her waist. So this meant that her timed bomb threat previously was real. This woman really is a maniac. If she had set off the bomb earlier, wouldn't I be? Although Emo didn't like it, he didn't say much. He had experienced quite a lot of dangerous situations and didn't care about another one. 20 minutes after the car had started to drive away, the heavenly shocking explosion could be heard from afar. If you're planning to go to Guiling, why don't you go there by plane? Wen Dong sat silently for a long time before asking. She already knew that Emo wasn't an ordinary person, which explained why he was so calm since the beginning despite everything that happened. Now that Emo wasn't saying anything, she knew that Emo wasn't feeling happy. Plus, if it wasn't for Emo today, she would have died along with those people. There was no way she could have survived in that situation. She wasn't afraid of death, but if she died, she wouldn't be able to use the money the way she wanted. Although she didn't say it, she was still very grateful toward Emo. "I don't have my identity papers on me." Emo's reply was simple, yet he wouldn't actually dare to use his identity papers even if he had them. He had killed Song Shaowen and also disappeared that night. The Song family would find out that he was the culprit eventually. Emo knew this a long time ago. If he bought a plane ticket with his identity, this would be like directly sending clues to the Song family, and right now, he didn't have the ability to speak on equal grounds with them. After Wang Peng's hand had recovered, he was on high alert. It made him realize that he wasn't the only strong one in this world. After staying silent for another while, Wen Dong said, "Thank you for what happened this time. Without you, I probably would have lost my life there. The $50,000 I promised you is too little, but I cannot give you this money either. It has other uses. You can take the case containing the model. That thing is worth a lot of money. With your power, you should be able to protect it. But don't ask me what it is. I don't know much either. However, if you trust me, there are only 3 hours until we reach Huyang, which is a far-off mountain district, and I can help you get a real identity there." Emo really wasn't interested in that model thing and didn't care at all whether he had it or not. However, with a new identity, it would be so much easier for him. Now, that Wen Dong could actually get him one, of course, he would be happy to. He quickly said, "Fine, I'll believe you. I really need a new identity anyway." As for payment, Yemo was satisfied with the 50,000. He didn't really care that much about money as long as he had enough to use. Even if Wendong were to give him those US dollars, he would actually find it troublesome to exchange them. Wendong immediately had a good impression of Yemo. This guy not only had absurd power but was easy to talk to and didn't take money into much consideration. With his power, it was as easy as eating and drinking for him to kill her and rob everything from her. But from the beginning till now, Yemo didn't even look at the case once. He even didn't complain about only being paid 50,000 while risking so much. Furthermore, Yemo didn't even ask who she really was, or what she did, or even where she was going. It was as though he was simply a roadside stranger. Well, perhaps he was, but definitely not an ordinary one. Do you have a phone number? When Dong wanted to be connected with Yemo, no, I like peace. Yemo's words made her realize that he didn't like getting to know other people, so when Dong didn't talk anymore. She wasn't the type of woman to annoy someone. 3 hours later, the car arrived at Huyang. Yemo went into a little hotel after Wendong had taken a picture of Yemo and left. And when Wendong came back the second day, it was already 3 p.m. She really wasn't bluffing. Yemo's new identity was already completed. He was also called Yemo. However, his place of residence was a rural place in Huyang, but Yemo didn't mind. There were too many people also called Yemo in this world. Wendong gave Yemo $50,000, as well as the case with the file and the model since she said she had no use for it anymore. When Yemo opened the case, he saw that this thing inside wasn't heavy, so he threw the case away and found a plastic bag to put its contents in. He stuffed it in his backpack and said goodbye to Wendong. That night, Yemo took the train to Huzhong Province's southernmost city, Xianshan. Xianshan was the borderline city between the Huzhong Province and the Xianghui Province. Meanwhile, Xianghui was also neighbors with the Guinan Province. Guilin, where Yemo wanted to go, belonged to the Guinan Province. Right now, he was at Xianshan, so he had to pass through Xianghui Province before he could go in Guinan. Finally, he would have to go to Guinan Province's southernmost city, which was Guilin City. After arriving in Xianshan, Yemo wasn't in a hurry to travel anymore. After all, this was a few thousand kilometers from Ninghai. Even if the Song family already knew that he killed Song Shaowen, they wouldn't be able to find him here for quite some time. Besides, in Yemo's opinion, even if the Song family found their way to Ninghai from the roads the BMW traveled, they still needed some time to realize he had gone missing. After staying one night in Xianshan, Yemo went out to buy things the next day as he had decided to get a new set of clothing. In order to prevent him from being pointed at by a gun again, Yemo took the time to go to a shop and bought a packet or metal nails. The nails were minuscule, and each box had a few hundred of them. For others people, it might be absurd to use nails as projectiles. However, it was more than enough for Yemo. After buying the nails, Yemo casually walked around the market and realized that the clothes here were all expensive. It was all branded shops. For Yemo, his clothes only needed to be wearable and suited to his body. He didn't care about what brand it was. No matter how good the brand was, how could it get better than the clothes made in the cultivation realm? Plus, he didn't have that much money to spend on clothes. People would look down on people like Yemo who wore cheap clothes when they went into these branded shops. However, he didn't care. He was just about to leave a store when he noticed a poshly dressed man reaching his hand into a small bag under the armpit of a middle-aged man. Meanwhile, this middle-aged man was on the phone with a worried face and didn't notice that he was being robbed. Thief? The bag the man had under his armpit appeared to be made from real leather. How was the thief going to break into it? Yemo was looking curiously when another poshly dressed youth beside the thief walked up to Yemo and said in a low voice, "Kid, if you stare any longer, I'll gouge your eyes out." Soft. Yemo's eyes became cold as he lifted his leg and delivered a kick, kicking this youth who told him to s off, right in the face. Chapter 46. Borderland Flowing Snake Town. Chapter 46. Borderland Flowing Snake Town. This youth kicked by Yemo flew backward and crashed onto a trash can. The way that he sat there would make people think he sat there himself, if not for his bleeding nose and mouth. Yemo's move immediately alerted everyone. Even that man who had just finished his call turned around. As soon as he turned around, he saw the thief behind him. However, when that thief saw that the middle-aged man noticed him, he didn't look worried at all. Instead, he packed away the sharp knife hidden between his fingers and turned, as two other men surrounded Guillermo with him. Other than the youth kicked into the trash can, there were actually 4 of them. "Punk, you're asking to die. Go and disable him." Another youth with a knife yelled in rage as he charged towards Guillermo. The other 2 didn't hesitate to charge at Guillermo as well. Only the one sitting on the trash can with his face still bleeding was completely terrorized. Of course, he had understood what had happened to him. A kick on his face from a young man actually sent him flying over and sitting on the trash can. He didn't even dare to think about this. It was as though he was forced to stand up as he realized that if Guillermo had kicked him in the chest instead and made him fly, he would probably not be as terrified as he was right now. He recognized that this youth wasn't someone they could mess with and wanted to tell his mates to stop, but they had already charged up. The middle-aged man also seemed to understand that this young man probably saw the thieves trying to steal his wallet and was targeted by the thief's partners in crime instead. Although he wanted to help, he didn't know any martial arts, and just when he was about to call the police, a scene that he could not believe happened once again before his eyes. That young man kicked again and sent flying the man with the knife, who didn't even understand how his knife was pierced into his own leg. This wasn't all. The place where the man flew was right on the head of the man sitting in the trash can. Then, the youth jumped up and did a roundhouse kick, which sent the other 2 youth, including the one that tried to steal his wallet, flying. 2 cracks resounded. It wasn't immediately known what broke until 2 of the thieves yelled out in pain and crumpled on top of the trash can. The 4 formed a human pile which made the trash can crumbling onto the ground, making a loud banging sound. The middle-aged man gasped a breath of cold air. If he hadn't seen Emo's movements with his own eyes and saw it on video instead, he would have thought this was synthesized by computer. This was almost like shooting a movie. Scum. Emo left, and finally, the people watching finally came back to themselves. They looked at the 4 thieves laying on the ground and started clapping. These thieves were barely able to move, but they seemed to know that things would get troublesome if the police came, so they struggled to sit up. They didn't care about the blood on them as they held each other and walked out. "Friend, please wait up. Thank you for what happened just then." The middle-aged man chased Emo and called out to him in gratitude. Emo waved his hand and said, "It's nothing. I didn't help you just for your sake. Those scum picked a fight with me." After finishing his sentence, he was about to leave once again. "My name is Joaigua, and I would like to invite you to a dinner to compensate you. Are you willing to come, friend?" Seeing that Emo was so powerful, Joaigua immediately had some thoughts. Not interested. Emo was only staying in Xianshan City for one night. This man invited him to dinner for a reason. But what thing was more important than him going to Guilin and cultivate? Seeing that Emo was going to leave, Joaigua was getting anxious. He hurriedly went up to him and said, "It's like this. I just need you to accompany me to Guilin, and furthermore, you can name any price you want." In Joaigua's opinion, Emo didn't dress like a wealthy person, so money should be a good motivator to him. However, he didn't know that if Emo didn't want to go to Guilin himself, he wouldn't be able to motivate him even with 1 million since Emo still had 50,000 on him. Guilin? Emo stopped his steps. The place he wanted to go happened to be Guilin. If it was along the way and he had money to earn, he wouldn't mind. However, if it were something dangerous like what he did with Wendong, then he wouldn't want to do it. Although he wasn't scared, he didn't want to become a henchman every time he met someone. He had an identity now anyways. He wasn't scared that he couldn't buy a plane ticket. "Fine, let's go talk." Emo thought that he couldn't leave tonight anyway, so he might as well have a talk with him. The 2 found a quiet cafeteria and sat down. Joaigua was straightforward and said, "Actually, something urgent came up which is forcing me to go to Guilin. I have to meet up with the gang leader at the Flowing Snake town to exchange some things. However, Flowing Snake is further down than Guilin, and that place is too chaotic. Originally, I was waiting here for someone to go with me. But friend, you are so much stronger than him. So if you're willing to come with me to Guilin, you can name any price. In fact, Flowing Snake is no longer a part of Guilin. I need to take a few hours car ride to reach Flowing Snake after I get off the plane at Guilin Airport. You know that there are no problems in flying straight from Xianshan to Guilin. However, Flowing Snake is close to the borders of a few countries and is the place where some ethnic minorities live. I said that the public security is chaotic there, but in fact, there is no public security at all. After Joaigua had finished, he looked at Emo filled with hope. There was one sentence that he omitted, which was that Flowing Snake was the place where the fugitives and mercenaries of different countries gathered at, and such things as killings and fighting occurred every day. Emo frowned as he barely knew anything about Guilin. He heard that Guilin was a borderline city, so if the Song family discovered him, he could go on the other side of the border at any time. He really hadn't heard of the place closer to the border that Joaigua talked about. As for whether or not it was chaotic, he didn't care at all. After thinking for a while, Emo said, "In fact, I was also planning to go to Guilin, as I want to find an opportunity to develop in that place. However, it will be my first time going there. I heard you saying that Flowing Snake is closer to the border, so I think I will have a greater chance of development going in this town instead. As for the payment, I don't need it. If you have some familiar places at Flowing Snake, then keep one in mind for me." After hearing Emo, Joaigua hurriedly shook his hand. "Don't ever go to Flowing Snake to develop. If you want to do business, you should stay at Guilin. I have some contacts in Guilin, and I also have a house there that I don't need and could simply give to you. In my case, the only reason for me to go to Flowing Snake is that I don't have any other choice. If I had, I would definitely not go there." Emo smiled faintly and said, "Where there are dangers, there are opportunities. I will go to Flowing Snake." Seeing that Emo had made up his mind, Joaigua didn't try to persuade him anymore. After all, Emo was a master. Finally, he said, "No problem. I should be able to find a place in Flowing Snake." Joaigua understood Emo's meaning. He had heard of this place before. Although it was a wicked city, it was easy to do things as long as you paved your way with money first. Emo nodded and said, "The business I do is a bit illegal. The further away it is, the better." Joaigua opened his mouth, but eventually didn't say anything. From his many years of experience in the business industry, Emo didn't seem like those cunning and sly people. However, the way he talked sounded like he wanted to join gangs. Chapter 47. So that's it. Chapter 47. So that's at Ninghai University. Yunbing was feeling irritated these few days. She tried to see if she could find Emo, but she hadn't seen him for a long time. Initially, although Emo didn't go to her class often, she could still often see him going to the library, yet these last few days, she hadn't even seen his shadow. Originally, she thought that after Emo had disappeared, she would be able to calm down and keep doing what she wanted. However, she was constantly reminded of the fact that Zhang Wenxiao and her schoolmate being beaten until they became mentally disabled was related to her. She wanted to ask Emo about the event, but his attitude was horrible at the time. He had even wanted to throw her into the lake. That bastard! She suspected that not only he had looked at her body, but he might have even touched it, seeing how cocky he was to her. Thinking about this, Yunbing immediately felt furious and started wondering if perhaps Ninghai was no longer suitable for her, which would force her to go back to Beijing. After thinking about leaving Ninghai for a while, Yunbing actually gasped a sigh of relief and thought that she should have left long ago. The first thing Yunbing did when she returned to her home wasn't to cook like she used to, but pack her stuff. After she had completely packed her things, she started cleaning the place and found an SD card in her room. Yunbing picked up the 8 GB SD card near the corner and felt confused, as she had never used SD cards. However, she immediately thought of the camera that she had found, smashed to pieces that day after Emo left. However, all the things inside it were broken, and since she didn't know what had happened, she didn't bother looking too much into it. But now, she found a storage disk and immediately thought that it should be the cameras, the one that she couldn't find when she had woken up and saw the mess that was left that day. It looked like this was exactly the one she had been looking for, but she didn't expect it to be in the corner of the room. If she wasn't tidying the house today, she actually wouldn't have found it. Yunbing opened up her laptop and put the SD card in. She found only one video file and opened it with the embedded player. Immediately, the screen showed an image and voices could be heard. "Young Master Chiao, I am ready." It was the voice of her schoolmate who drugged her. "Start when I go on this woman." Remember to film it clearly and capture all the specifics, especially when she moans. I want all of it. I don't believe that she won't cooperate after all that. The image showed Jin Wenxiao. Watching the video, Yun Bing was literally so angry that she was shaking. What made her more embarrassed and outraged at the same time was that she was the one to pull apart her own clothes, and she immediately understood what happened. It should have been from the drink she had drunk that day, which had an aphrodisiac in it. On the screen, her face was ruby red. Her eyes were filled with lust, and she had pulled off the clothes in front of her chest. This showed just how potent the drug was. Just as Yun Bing didn't know what to do anymore, the door in the screen was kicked open. Yimo, who had his face covered, came in. When Yun Bing saw to this part, she was finally relieved and had already a subtle understanding of what had happened. Friend, what do you want to do? If you just want money, we don't need to cross paths, and we can let you play after we finish enjoying ourselves. This is a high-quality woman. Jin Wenxiao was wary of Yimo as he was talking. At the same time, he was putting back on the clothes he was about to take off. Human scum. Yimo just spoke 2 words and kicked Jin Wenxiao. The following scene was very blurry. Then she saw her schoolmate fight with Yimo. It seemed to be very brief, and the video just stopped there. Afterward was an entirely black screen. Although the content of the video was limited, from what she had gathered so far, Yun Bing had already guessed a few things. It should be that Yimo saw these people abduct her and followed them. Then he beat them up in her home. Yimo had broken the door to save her, but as for how he eventually had dealt with the effects of the drug, Yun Bing wasn't completely certain. However, she knew that Yimo didn't do anything more physical to harass her. No wonder the second morning, those two became mentally disabled and were thrown on the square. It was Yimo who did it. Yun Bing suddenly stood up as she realized that she had wronged Yimo, who saved her life. If it weren't for Yimo, what would the results have been? Yun Bing didn't dare to imagine. Perhaps there was no other way out than suicide. This Zheng Wenxiao was so evil. However, she had no idea when she got on his bad side. Yun Bing thought again and realized now wasn't the time to care about other people's things. She should be trying to contact Yimo. He saved her, yet she repaid his benevolence with malfeasance. Yun Bing suddenly felt embarrassed. However, she was a very grateful person. Since she was wrong, she knew that she should immediately find Yimo and apologize, then thank him for saving her life. Why didn't Yimo tell me the truth? However, Yun Bing understood very quickly. That day when Yimo was just wiping his face, she had woken up for barely a moment and fainted again, and perhaps Yimo didn't even realize it. Or maybe, since this thing involved the vice mayor's son, he might have been scared that she might be burdened mentally or reveal something and end up being the one to suffer. Besides, with her impression of Yimo, would she believe him even if he had said it? Thank you, Yimo. She suddenly felt that he didn't seem so annoying. When a person's mentality changed, the person's views of someone else might change too. When she was tidying the room, she still felt that Yimo was the most detestable person, yet now, she felt he was quite handsome. No, I must apologize in front of his face, she thought. He had saved her life, and some things couldn't be resolved even with death. Even if she killed herself for this, it would only ruin her reputation. Should I find Yimo? But I hadn't seen him for a long time. I know. I will go to class tomorrow and ask if someone knows where Yimo is. In today's English class, what made all the students in the class drop their glasses was that the usual cold, merciless Bing actually asked about Yimo whereabouts. After class, Yun Bing didn't leave and asked on the podium, Yimo hasn't been here for a long time. Do you guys know where he went? Is there anyone among you that can contact him? Silence, a long silence. When at last even Yun Bing didn't know what to do, finally a student answered, Yimo is the closest with Shirxiu. However, Shirxiu hasn't come for a long time either. There is also Su Mei who knows Yimo. I saw them talk last time at the library. After Yun Bing had left, the classroom erupted again. Yimo not only knew an incredibly breathtaking woman who even came for him multiple times. Now, even merciless Bing had asked about him. This Yimo really was almighty. Su Mei was a celebrity in Ninghai University and, at the same time, she was also a student of Yun Bing, so of course she knew her. When Su Mei heard Yun Bing asking her about Yimo, She was stunned at first, but soon returned to her composure as she said, "Mrs. Yun, Yemo is a wicked man down to the root. You don't need to be angry at him. Even my cousin almost fell for his trap. This person really knows how to disguise himself." Yun Bing was astonished for a moment and thought, why would I be angry with Yemo when I'm trying so hard to show my gratitude? However, she didn't rebuke Su Mei. After all, that was her point of view, and she had her own. Wasn't she also a hater of Yemo before? "Su Mei, actually, I have something urgent for Yemo," Yun Bing said helplessly. Something urgent? It seemed that Mrs. Yun really had something urgent. As she thought of her words, Su Mei was immediately reminded of that day when Yun Bing wanted to slap Yemo in anger. She subconsciously looked at Yun Bing's stomach and thought, wasn't Yemo impotent? Did he also create a problem there? Of course, Yun Bing didn't know Su Mei's dirty mind and asked worriedly again, "Do you know where he is?" Su Mei returned to herself and shook her head. "I don't know, but my cousin Su Jingwen might know. Why don't you ask her?" Chapter 48. Robber stopping you in the tracks. Chapter 48. Robber stopping you in the tracks. Su Jingwen felt the bracelet on her wrist, and suddenly, she regretted giving 3 beads to Ning Qingxue. She felt that she shouldn't have listened to Su Mei's words and changed her opinion of Yemo. Even if that day she saw that teacher saying awful things about Yemo with her own eyes, it didn't necessarily mean that it was Yemo's fault. Perhaps this teacher was wrong. Besides, even if it was Yemo's fault, it didn't have anything to do with her, so she wouldn't be affected. If similar things were to happen again, she would rather believe Yemo. After all, she knew Yemo, but she didn't know this teacher. You know one's face, but you don't know one's heart. On the surface, the teacher looked cold, but it didn't mean she was actually like this. She believed that Yemo wasn't like what the teacher and Su Mei said about him. However, she already gave the 3 beads to Ning Qingxue, and she couldn't really ask them back. She could only blame Ning Qingxue for picking the perfect time to ask for it. If it had been a while since her meeting with Yun Bing, perhaps even a single day, she would have changed her mind. Luckily, she only gave 3 beads to Ning Qingxue. If she gave her the whole thing, she would probably be regretting so much more now. After all, Yemo gave this to her. Although it wasn't worth much, it was the only one out of all her presents that were handmade by the person himself. She wanted to visit Yemo but didn't know where he was. Even Ning Qingxue didn't know. Li Mumei didn't either, but she still wanted to ask, just in case. Su Jingwen took out her phone and wanted to call Li Mumei to ask if she knew where Yemo was, but suddenly, her phone rang. The call was actually made by that teacher, Yun Bing, and she knew that only Su Mei could have given her number. After arranging to see each other, Yun Bing came very quickly and saw Su Jingwen within half an hour. Hearing Yun Bing's intentions, Su Jingwen was very surprised. "What? You want to see Yemo? Why? The last time I asked you about him, you said that he was a—" Su Jingwen didn't finish her sentence, but her meaning was very clear. "Since you were already talking about Yemo like that, why do you still want to see him?" However, Su Jingwen just didn't want to say it in front of Yun Bing. After all, they weren't familiar with each other. Although she really wanted to see Yemo, it didn't mean that she wanted to take Yun Bing with her. "Sorry, I misunderstood him last time. I want to see him so I can apologize to him." Yun Bing was very straightforward. As soon as Su Jingwen heard what she said, her heart felt a bit lighter as she was right about Yemo. However, she disliked people like Yun Bing more who didn't even figure out what happened before saying this and that about someone. This type of woman was very annoying. It was right for her to apologize after she had said terrible things about Yemo, and she even wanted to see Yemo herself now. After a short call with Li Mumei, Su Jingwen knew that there was still no news of Yemo. It was as though he had just suddenly vanished without leaving a trace. What? Where did Yemo go? Yun Bing was very disappointed. She even suspected that Su Jingwen disliked her and didn't want her to know where Yemo went, but looking at Su Jingwen's expression, she knew that Su Jingwen wasn't lying to her. Yemo moved to Zhua Aigua's hotel and went on the plane at 8 a.m. the following day. Fortunately, he didn't even need to worry about the plane ticket since Zhua Aigua had it all figured out. 2 hours later, the plane stopped at Guilin City Airport and nothing troublesome happened on the way. It appeared that Zhua Aigua was more reliable than that Wendong. When Dong promised Yemo there would be nothing, but in the end, if Yemo wasn't in the second stage of qi gathering and was particularly careful, he might have lost his life there. If that woman lost her life, so be it. But he, Yemo, was innocent. It wasn't worth for him to lose his life for $50,000. Yemo, we've arrived at Guilin Airport now, and someone will pick us up soon. My plan is to go straight to Flowing Snake, so we can avoid sleeping one night at Guilin and any unnecessary trouble. Zhuaigua seemed to want to get it done immediately, so he could leave this damned place as fast as possible. He didn't want to stay a moment longer, but this situation was exactly what Yemo wanted. He didn't want to waste time on these unnecessary things either. After the two had walked out of the airport, an Audi car drove over. The driver was a relatively innocent-looking youth. When he saw Zhuaigua, he respectfully called him boss. This is my chauffeur Xiaoyu. He's also my employee. Although he doesn't practice martial arts, he had been a few times to Flowing Snake and is relatively familiar with the place. Zhuaigua introduced him casually. Yemo glanced at the youth and knew that he only looked fairly strong but didn't learn any martial arts. Although this young chauffeur didn't talk much, his driving was steady yet fast. After leaving Guilin for 2 hours, the car left from the decent road to the steep mountain ones. It was another 2 hours before the roads finally got better, but at this point, there wasn't even a village to be seen around. It was all barren wilderness. Yemo didn't know why Zhuaigua came here, but this place was indeed far off. No wonder he needed someone to come with him. However, he really liked it here. In some sense, he was running for his life, and this place was the best for him to cultivate and hide. A colossal organization like the Song family wasn't something that Yemo could mess with at this point. The car went on for another 10 minutes and entered a big valley. As soon as the car went in, Yemo heard some sound from behind. He opened the window to look back and saw that the way they came from had been blocked. Zhuaigua and the chauffeur also noticed this situation. Zhuaigua's face immediately became awful, but the driver seemed indifferent. He looked at Zhuaigua once and said, "Boss, you just need to give them some money, but don't worry. These people usually only come for money." Zhuaigua nodded, and after the chauffeur had driven the car another 100 meters, they were stopped, and it appeared that it wasn't just their car, but also another Mercedes that was also stopped. "Get out. All of you, get out." A bulky man wearing weird clothes and a megaphone in his hand yelled at them. He had 2 people by his side carrying a gun each, but they were incomparable with Wendong's AK. Yemo even suspected that even if they fired at him before he had noticed, he would still be able to dodge it. 2 people got off the Mercedes. There were one tall man and a tall-figured woman. The man was handsome-looking and was a bit bulky. His clothes were obviously from famous brands. Although Yemo didn't care about brands, he still knew some of them. Unexpectedly, the man was pale-faced, as if something like this happening to him was actually surprising. The woman turned her head and looked at Yemo's Audi, confused. This woman had a graceful temperament. Her perfectly fitted jeans complemented her long legs and full bottom, making it very eye-attracting. She had some faint makeup on her face, and half a silver necklace showing at her snow-white neck made her seem very sophisticated. Although she wasn't as pretty as Su Jingguan and Ning Qingxue, her long hair with her temperament gave her a unique flavor. The woman obviously had a special relationship with the handsome man as she was standing close behind the man, and although her face looked worried, she wasn't as scared as the man. Chapter 49. Slow-Paced Walk. Chapter 49. Slow-Paced Walk. Zhuaigua had already gotten off. So did Yemo and the chauffeur Xiaoyu. Yemo looked around. Other than the man calling out to them and the 2 with the guns beside him, there were another 2 behind them that blocked their path. Including 2 more at the front blocking them, there was a total of 7 people, of which 6 were armed with guns. "Give us $50,000 and you may leave," the man with the megaphone said. "Wasn't it 10,000 before? Why is it suddenly 50,000 now?" Xiaoyu seemed to know the situation and asked, "What?" "Talk more *T and I'll kill you. I decide on how much money we take." The man who stopped the BMW heard Xiaoyu's words and waved his gun, reproaching him arrogantly. Okay, I have the money. $50,000. I'll give it to you immediately." The youth had a pale face and acted immediately, turning around and took 50,000 from his car. The man in front took the money and waved his hand. "You can go." The tall youth immediately got in the car and said, "Xiao Lei, let's hurry and leave. Don't go to Flowing Snake. We should go back immediately." The woman called Xiao Lei looked at Emo and the two other people with him and said worriedly, She barely said two words but was immediately interrupted by the youth. "They are driving such a good car. They definitely will have the money. We don't need to worry." Just as he was speaking, he was also interrupted. "Punk, you can leave by yourself. We'll take her for a few days. You can come and pick her up later. You woman, come over here." The man with the gun spoke and pointed at the tall girl Xiao Lei. Hearing the man's words and his finger that was pointing at her, her face immediately went pale. I already gave the money to you. Please let us go." When the tall youth heard that they wanted him to leave Xiao Lei behind, his face that had just recovered some color turned pale and ugly once again. "I will count from 5. If you still stay here, then I won't be so nice anymore." The man who said that the girl was to stay interrupted the young man's words and said coldly while raising his gun. Then, he started counting. "Wait, I'll leave." The youth suddenly charged toward his Mercedes. He left behind a small bag and quickly ignited the engine. Then he turned his vehicle and actually started to drive back on his own. He was so fast that, at this moment, the man with the gun had only counted backward to 4. Luckily, this area was open. Otherwise, it would have been really hard for the young man to turn with his speed. The robbers kept their word and, seeing how this man fled, they all laughed as they opened up a way for him to pass instead. The woman called Xiao Lei was still here and had a paler complexion. Her lips were trembling, but she still couldn't say anything for a long time. She only kept moving back until she retreated to Emo's car. "It's your turn. You need to be fast to take out the money, and don't waste our leisure time." The 7 men had already gathered around them. "Xiao Lei, you are journalist Xiao." At this moment, Zhua Igua recognized who the girl was and suddenly exclaimed. Obviously, he knew this girl. Xiao Lei suddenly turned around and saw Zhua Igua. The person in front of her she was familiar, but she didn't recognize who he was. However, with someone knowing her, she seemed to have found a place where she could hide and quickly retreated behind Emo. She felt her heart freezing, facing these bulky men who were staring at her like hungry tigers. "You are..." Xiao Lei looked worriedly at Zhua Igua. No matter what, Zhua Igua was countless times better than these thugs. "I am Zhua Igua, from Lanyi Corporation." Before Zhua Igua even finished his sentence, he was interrupted by Xiao Lei in surprise. "You are the CEO Zhua of Long Corp? Zhua Yangqing's third uncle. I really didn't think that I would see you here." Xiao Lei suddenly stopped as she remembered the situation she was in. Although Zhua Igua was someone familiar, even if Zhua Igua didn't leave her behind, he wouldn't be able to protect her from the thugs. Her heart sunk once again and no longer had the joy of seeing Zhua Igua in a foreign land. "I didn't think you guys knew each other. Hurry the F***CK up and give me the money, then P***S off. Woman, come over here or I'll shoot all of you down. Don't blame me for not giving you a chance. F***King hell." The man who had his eyes locked on Xiao Lei woofed cockily. Zhua Igua managed to calm down in this situation. He knew Xiao Lei as she was a famous journalist in Beijing and went especially to those dangerous front lines to do interviews. Zhua Igua wouldn't be able to let a woman she knew be dragged away by thugs to be her pet. "Yemo, do you have any idea?" Zhua Igua knew Yemo could fight, but facing 7 thugs with guns, this wasn't the same with the thieves back in the market. "Who are these people?" Yemo asked plainly as if not seeing the gun pointed at him. "They are all mercenaries and thugs from inland and other countries. These people often walk on the border of China, Vietnam, and a few other countries. They would kill as they wished, but they mainly robbed." Zhua Igua knew some about this. Otherwise, he wouldn't be asking for Yemo to help him. "How many people do they have?" Yemo asked another question again. It said that there were 13 of them and called themselves the 13 Turbos. However, I heard that they had a fight with another gang and 6 of them died. Now, there are just these 7 remaining. Usually, they only want money, but if you didn't cooperate, they would kill people immediately. They barely took the women, but there was rarely a woman of this caliber coming here. This time, it was the chauffeur who replied. He came here a few times and was more familiar than Zhuaigua. When Xiao Yu talked about women, he subconsciously looked at Xiao Lei and didn't continue talking. Everyone knew what he was thinking. Why did a woman like you come here? Yimo nodded and said, Boss Shua, leave this to me. You three get on the car first. F***CK. Wasting our time. Yang Pai, kill one first, since these people, the only one without a gun, the one holding a megaphone in his hands, saw Yimo and them talking for too long and was getting impatient. Bang! Before the man had even finished speaking, the man beside him fired his gun. Obviously, he was thinking the same thing as the man with the megaphone. Unfortunately, his target was Yimo. At the same time he fired his gun, Yimo had jumped up and kicked him right in the face. The man didn't even make a noise before collapsing. The two people beside him, including the one holding the megaphone, also collapsed, and yet, Yimo wasn't even hurt. Yimo kicked 3 people consecutively, and before he even dropped to the ground, he copied Wendong's way and kicked on the hilt of the 2 guns which flew out and went over Zhuaigua's head. Then, there were another 2 deep sounds as the 2 men behind Zhuaigua were struck in the head by the guns. Yimo kicked out and fainted. The 2 remaining men quickly reacted and raised their weapons to shoot. Bang! Bang! There were 2 more gunshots. There was another crack, and only then did Zhuaigua and the others saw what happened despite their fear. Yimo was holding up their wrists which made the guns shooting into the air, and the cracking sound was probably Yimo breaking their wrists. Yimo didn't want to kill people in front of a journalist in case this woman would spread the word everywhere. That's why he didn't use the metal nails. Otherwise, he could have solved the problem with a few nails even quicker. Zhuaigua stared at Yimo in shock. He knew that Yimo was strong but didn't think of him to be this competent. He seemed to have dodged the first bullet before attacking, and then faced 6 guns like he was having a stroll. He then casually proceeded to beat them down. This wasn't a fight. This was a show. The driver also opened wide his mouth. He didn't even dare to believe that this innocuous-looking young man who came with his boss was this strong. After Xiao Lei's initial shock, she immediately watched the fight with fascination. This was her first time meeting someone with such refined martial arts, which was completely like something made in the action movies. It was a pity, however, that she wasn't able to film it. She had already forgotten the situation she was in not long ago. But then, she remembered what had happened and couldn't help but to feel grateful toward Yimo. If he didn't intervene, she would probably have been living a life that was better dead. It seemed that she couldn't be so impulsive anymore. Thinking about Wang Qianjun who had run away before, she sighed to herself. One could only see a person's true character in times of crisis. Even Zhuaigua was countless times better than that handsome Wang Qianjun. Thud! Yimo kicked one thug in the stomach, sending this person flying many meters away who fainted as he reached the ground. Chapter 50. Chaotic Flowing Snake. Chapter 50. Chaotic Flowing Snake. After Yimo had knocked the last opponent out, he turned to the driver and said, "Come over and help me out with a small favor. Drag these scum with me? I'll help you." Xiao Lei rushed up, her face still red. Apparently, her excitement hadn't died down. It was as though she met the legendary prince on a white stallion that suddenly came down to rescue her. It was like a dream, and things happened too fast. Zhuaigua had already calmed down. He silently rejoiced about his correct decision and further made up his mind that he was to establish a good connection with Yimo no matter what. He might be the student of some legendary ancient martial arts master for all he knew. Although he heard that there were some ancient martial arts families in Beijing, these families were usually very mysterious and wouldn't come out into the normal world, nor would they become athletes either. However, from what he knew, some families would select a few elite members to go into the special departments of the country. These departments only serve the country, and even some leaders couldn't have the privilege of being protected by these people. Yimo looked curiously at Xiao Lei, who ran over excitedly and shook his head speechlessly. This woman's mood changed so fast. He didn't talk to her, and just carried 2 unconscious thugs into the forest. The chauffeur Xiao Yu also dragged 2 people and followed him. Yimo dumped the 2 in the woods and carried over another 2. Xiao Lei saw that Yimo ignored her and was a bit annoyed, but even when she used all her might, She couldn't keep up with Yimo while dragging someone. At last, Xiaoyu helped her pull that one away. Seeing that all 7 of them had been brought here, Yimo told Xiaoyu, "You guys go in the car and wait for me a bit. I'll come over soon." After Xiaoyu had left, Yimo kicked one of them awake. These people, mostly from you, were blocking the roads and robbing its passers-by. After he had kicked all of them awake, Yimo asked where their base was and found out that it was actually in a private manor not far away from Flowing Snake Town. Also, it was pretty much as Xiaoyu said. There were indeed 13 people before, but now there was just 7 of them remaining. At first, Yimo had planned to destroy their base when he would reach to Flowing Snake, as he didn't like to leave things unfinished, but since there was no one left, he didn't plan on going anymore. Yimo dumped all of their bodies into the mountain stream. He had only found some currency on these people, but Yimo didn't take a single one. To him, this money was worth as much as money for the dead, perhaps even less. He didn't understand how these people would be so poor when they robbed all day. Maybe they just didn't carry the valuable things with them and left everything at their hideout. When Yimo returned to the mountain road, Xiaoyu and Zhuaigua had cleared out the obstacles. The 3 had already got into the car and were waiting for him. Unexpectedly, no one asked about where the thugs went after he got inside the car. "I can't take this money. You drove off the thugs, so you keep it." Xiaolei gave the $50,000 Zhuaigua had offered her to Yimo. Yimo pushed it aside and said, "No need, you can keep the money. I'm hired by Boss Shua, and he's already paying for my salary. Besides, your friend ditched you, so take that as his compensation." I don't know him, that animal." Xiaolei still wanted to say something, but Yimo just told Xiaoyu to start driving. "Mr. Yi, we are really lucky to have you with us this time. If it weren't for you, we would have really been in trouble this time." Zhuaigua hurriedly expressed his gratitude to Yimo. Zhuaigua was telling the truth. If he hadn't met Xiaolei, he would have only lost tens of thousands of dollars. However, after meeting her, Zhuaigua's character wouldn't allow him to be a bystander as she was taken away, and if any conflict had occurred, the results would have been disastrous. Yimo waved his hands and said, "Boss Shua, you were too polite. This was nothing. Besides, this is what we agreed upon at the beginning. Otherwise, what would be the point of hiring me?" Hearing Yimo's words, Zhuaigua was in a good mood and said, "I'm a few years older, if you don't mind, Mr. Yi. Just call me Brother Zhua, and I'll just call you Brother Yi." "This sounds great." Yimo nodded in approval. Zhuaigua was not a bad person, someone who was worth connecting to. When Xiaolei asked for Yimo's name from Zhuaigua, she felt this name was a bit familiar, as though she heard it somewhere before, but just couldn't recall it for the moment. Journalist Xiao, although Flowing Snake is a borderline town, it is one of the most chaotic places in the region, and it's even the boundary between 3 countries. "Why would you come here?" Zhuaigua turned his head and asked. Xiaolei's thought process was interrupted and could only respond helplessly. "It's because I heard that the tourists who come to Guilin would disappear near the famous tourist spots, so I wanted to come here and interview a few people. After coming here, I found out that most people had gone missing after going to Flowing Snake, so now I wanted to go there to see for myself. If I didn't encounter you guys, I really don't know what would have happened. I'm really grateful." Yimo was laughing to himself. This female journalist was too naive. She was too used to living in big cities that she thought if she just took out her journalist license, those thugs would just surrender. He was literally speechless. Zhuaigua also had no idea what to say. He knew Xiaolei. She was a famous journalist that just rose to fame over the past couple of years. However, he wasn't familiar with her, so he couldn't point fingers in front of her face. Xiaolei saw these people's complexions and understood how they thought, but she couldn't really rebuke them as she realized how naive she was. When she first wanted to come to Guilin, Wang Qinjun wanted to go with her no matter what, so he accompanied her all the way to Guilin and even got a BMW in Guilin City to drive her to Flowing Snake. Wang Qinjun's handsome appearance did transmit people a good feeling, and she had a good feeling towards him as well. It was probably not long before she would have agreed to become his girlfriend. However, in a time of crisis, Xiaolei understood that a handsome appearance was completely irrelevant to other things. Yimo didn't talk anymore. He only looked around and enjoyed the sight. There were wild forests everywhere and very little people, which was perfect for his cultivation. And even if the Song family chased him here, he would have a way to escape. Yemo didn't think he was an invincible being right now, and he knew that there were a lot of people stronger than him right now. Besides, even modern firearms weren't something he could defend against with his current powers. Zhuaigua and Xiao Lei, meanwhile, were engaged in a heated conversation. However, Xiao Lei glanced at Yemo from time to time. Yet, seeing that Yemo didn't have the urge to talk and seemed to be meditating, she dismissed the thought of talking to him. Half an hour later, the Audi drove into a town, of which half was heavily fortified and had the appearance of a fortress. "This is Flowing Snake. We have to do a few things first, so we can only leave tomorrow." "Journalist Xiao, how about you? Are you coming with us, or moving on your own?" After the car had gone into Flowing Snake, Zhuaigua looked at Xiao Lei and asked. Before Xiao Lei could even answer, she saw two groups of people fighting in front of them. They were all holding weapons such as sticks, knives, and so on. In a short moment, a few people who were bleeding all over fell to the ground, moaning and screaming. However, after a long time, a group of individuals who looked like the police came over, and these people who were madly fighting just left while carrying the injured away. Surprisingly, the police didn't follow them and just went straight back to what they were doing. Xiao Lei's heart was beating rapidly as she looked on. She didn't think that things like this would occur in public, which gave her a shocking awakening from her previously naive thoughts. Flowing Snake is basically a place of anarchy, which was originally covered by the wilderness. However, after the 70s, due to the war, there were asylum seekers who gathered here. They came from the different countries around here and formed a fort-like town in the region. The police you saw previously were impromptu. Therefore, there is hardly any place more chaotic than here. As if he had seen Yemo and Xiao Lei's shock, Zhuaigua took the initiative to explain. Although this was the first time he came to Flowing Snake, he had already gathered a lot of information before. "I think I'll stay with Uncle Zhua." Xiao Lei no longer dared to be that lone heroic journalist and chose to stay with them without hesitation. Chapter 51. Ning Hai Magical Doctor. Chapter 51. Ning Hai Magical Doctor. After going into Flowing Snake, the Audi stopped in front of a stone house that Yemo thought to be interesting due to its unique design. It had a half-circular shape looking similar to the tints in Mongolia, and although there were multiple windows, they were tightly fitted between the stones on the wall. Zhuaigua didn't let Xiao Yu and Xiao Lei go in with him and just asked Yemo to follow him. The space inside the room wasn't small. There were more than 20 people in it, and each and every one of them looked ferocious as they were surrounded by killer's qi. Even those who didn't understand qi or qi one could tell these people would kill if they had to. Other than the two armed men besides the long-haired man sitting at the top with a face full of ferocity, everyone else had either swords or custom-made knives. Seeing Zhuaigua and Yemo walk in, two ferocious-looking youth demanded to search Yemo and Zhuaigua before the long-haired leader even said anything. However, when these two approached Yemo grabbed one with each hand and threw them aside like harmless chickens. The two flew straight out the door like cannonballs in perfect formation. Seeing this, all the people in the room raised up the blades in their hands, waiting for the command of the long-haired man at the top. The man sitting in the top seat saw Yemo defend himself effortlessly, and shock flashed across his eyes. However, he immediately got over it and waved his hand, signaling his men not to be impulsive. After a brief moment, he simply said to the two people beside him, "You two leave first, Rock and Shadow stay behind." At this moment, there was only Zhuaigua and Yemo in the room, together with the long-haired man and two of his subordinates. That leader knew that this youth was obviously someone not to be messed with, and although he greatly overpowered Yemo in numbers, it didn't necessarily mean that they would be a match for him. Since a normal person couldn't just throw out two bulky men so casually, he might as well be more forgiving, and he wasn't planning on devouring Zhuaigua anyway. The long-haired man looked at Zhuaigua and saluted with his fist. "Boss Shua, it's a pleasure to see you. May I ask who this is?" He chose his words carefully as he turned his head toward Yemo. Zhuaigua knew exactly what was going on. This person was afraid of Yemo, not him. Igua immediately waved his hand and said, "Chairman Fong, don't worry, he is my friend. He doesn't like to talk much and was just afraid something would happen to me, so he came along." I have already brought the item that you seek. What about your end of the deal, Chairman Fong? The long-haired youth looked scrupulously at Emo once and procured a wooden box from a leather bag. As soon as the wooden box was taken out, Emo felt an unusual chi. This definitely wasn't something normal, and actually had a sliver of pure spirit chi. Emo's eyes shimmered. He had the instinct that this thing would be useful for him. Show me your item first. The long-haired man held the wooden box and looked at Joao Igua. Before Joao Igua could speak, Emo suddenly waved his hand, and the wooden box from the long-haired man flew by itself and landed right in Emo's hands. This immediately scared the long-haired man, and he stood up abruptly. However, his shocked expression was immediately concealed. Now, his eyes not only looked at Emo scrupulously, but also with a deep fear and reverence. It wasn't only the long-haired man, but the two other people behind him, as well as Joao Igua, who looked at Emo in disbelief. What mutant ability was this? He simply waved his hands and was able to grab something from 6 to 7 meters away? Emo wasn't fazed by the shocked eyes around him. He just reached his hands and opened the box, and inside, there was a black piece of vine. As Emo picked up the vine, a faint spirit wave emanated from it. Purple heart vine? Emo immediately understood that this was a section of the root of a purple heart vine. Seeing this here on Earth shocked Emo, as it was a spiritual plant, and he knew that the spirit chi on Earth was scarce. He was already surprised when he had found the silver heart grass, much less this section of the purple heart vine. Unfortunately, there was only this tiny amount, if only there were more. Brother Yi, you! Joao Igua was so shocked by Emo's telekinetic ability that he stuttered while he tried to make sense of what had just happened. Before, Emo was able to beat many enemies down swiftly just by himself, which meant, in Joao Igua's eyes, that he had great ability. However, this telekinetic power could no longer be called a great ability. This was too outrageous. Brother Joao, this thing will be useful to me. I was wondering if you would be willing to compromise. If it had been billions of USD, Emo would just ignore it. However, although this thing could be found easily where he came from, the probability to find it on Earth was minuscule. If it hadn't been for his good fortune, he wouldn't have been able to find it in his lifetime. Joao Igua didn't seem to have come back into reality from Emo's actions moments before. Now, he heard Emo's words, which immediately woke him up. He said in a hurry, "Since Brother Yi likes it, then just take it. This dark purple root is indeed rarely seen. I only managed to find it in Flowing Snake, and only this small piece." Emo heard Joao Igua calling the purple heart vine as a dark purple root, but didn't correct him. Perhaps that was what it was called here. After Joao Igua had said his piece, he took out an envelope and gave it to the long-haired man. "This is the check. Take it." The long-haired man reacted and immediately walked in front of Emo, saluting with his fists, and said, "I'm Fong Nan. Right now, I'm a small leader of a small clan. I haven't asked for your honorable name yet, elder brother." He could already tell that Emo wasn't an ordinary person and wanted to create a connection with him. Although Emo was definitely younger than him, he still called Emo elder brother. Emo looked at this long-haired man. He wondered where he had obtained this plant and planned to ask him later. Besides, he had decided to live in Flowing Snake for a period of time, so it was necessary to have a good connection with the local snakes here. "I'm Emo. I plan to live at Flowing Snake for a period of time," Emo said. "Ah, great. If Brother Yi needs to deal with any trivial things, just come to me, Fong Nan. I'll give this dark purple root as a greeting present for Brother Yi." "Brother Joao, sorry, please take this check back." Fong Nan pushed the check back to Joao Igua. Joao Igua wasn't amused and pushed the check right back to Fong Nan. "We've already agreed to this. This is my present to Brother Yi. How can I not pay for it?" Seeing the two was getting into an argument, Emo waved his and said, "Chairman Fong, just take the check. You have a lot of brothers with you, and you need it for expenditure. By the way, Brother Joao, what need did you have for this dark purple root?" Joao Igua sighed and said, "For some unknown reason, when my son turned 8, he suddenly got sick, which left him mentally disabled. During the past couple of years, I don't know how many hospitals I have been to and how many specialists I have seen, but none of them had any clue as to how to treat him. It was until some old Chinese doctor told me to use a dark purple root to make a beverage to drink every day for 3 years, and it might cure the problem. I used countless ways until I finally found out that Chairman Fong had a piece here, so I rushed over here. Originally, my big uncle saw a magical doctor at Ninghai, but when I made my way over, that doctor had disappeared. I thought that if that magical doctor could cure my big uncle's disease, then he could definitely cure my son's disease. Sigh. Unfortunately, I wasn't lucky enough. Furthermore, this dark purple root may not necessarily cure my son's disease. That Chinese doctor just said maybe. Anyway, it doesn't matter if Brother Yi takes it. Ninghai. Yimo repeated to make sure he didn't hear wrongly. He thought that since he just came over from Ninghai, maybe Zhua Aigua was talking about the old man that he had saved last time. Yes, Ninghai. They met him at Likang Hospital. My big uncle had his disease for many years, and many specialists made the same conclusions, yet that magical doctor still managed to save my big uncle. Unfortunately, it was a heavenly fortune to encounter him once. It is too hard to find him again, Zhua Aigua said, as he was looking down gloomily. Meanwhile, Yimo was already sure that this magical doctor he talked about was none other than himself. Notes: 1. A little reminder/clarification. Qi refers to the special Qi Yimo cultivates. It is used by the immortals who are called the cultivators. Qi is used by the martial artists or masters who cultivates on earth. The killer's Qi is obtained after taking many lives and enjoying it. Chapter 52. Far-Off Living Place. Chapter 52. Far-Off Living Place. Yimo said after a moment of silence. Brother Zhua, if you trust me, leave me an address. After my business here is over, I will go to your place to have a look, and perhaps I can cure him. However, I need to tell you that the dark purple root cannot cure your son's disease. I don't know where that old Chinese doctor heard it from, but it is definitely *T. Ah, Zhua Aigua yelped in surprise and grabbed Yimo's hands. Brother Yi, can you really help cure my son? Yimo nodded and said, it shouldn't be a big problem. Of course, I believe you, of course. The stuttering Zhua Aigua took out an exquisite name card and gave it to Yimo. This is my home address and contact number. Please, brother. He didn't think that Yimo was lying and believed that Yimo wasn't the type of person to brag either, much less after seeing Yimo's magical performance today. Although he hadn't been with Yimo for long, he felt that Yimo was a trustworthy person and a good friend. Yimo looked at the name card and nodded. However, I can't go to Beijing now. It would probably have to wait until a year from now. Yimo knew that he would be probably throwing himself into a trap going to Beijing now. Don't worry about it. As long as Brother Yi remembers, it's fine. Zhua Aigua didn't seem the slightest displeased at all. Instead, he was euphoric. Even if the dark purple root could cure his son, it needed at least 2 to 3 years. On the other side, even if Yimo said that he couldn't cure now, it meant that as long as he went there, it probably should be solved. Zhua Aigua knew which was the better choice. As for why Yimo didn't go with him now, he didn't think too much about it. Yimo was a magical person. He had his own errands to deal with. Plus, this wasn't his first day in the world. Yimo had to run to the borderline of the country, meaning that he had his troubles. As a friend, one didn't need to ask about everything. Haha, Brother Yi. I'll immediately order people to set up a feast to welcome you too. Fongnan's happiness wasn't about doing the business deal today, but being able to meet someone like Yimo was definitely something to celebrate, and most importantly, he would be staying for some time. Just when Xiao Lei was panicking after waiting for so long, Yimo and Zhua Aigua came out, followed by a bulky, long-haired man. After the meal, Xiao Lei could tell that both the guests and the host were happy. Whether it was Zhua Aigua or that ferocious-looking man, they were all very respectful towards Yimo, and this respect came from the bottom of their heart. Zhua Aigua was the manager of a big Beijing entrepreneurship and was a wealthy man, but this big man didn't seem like the nice type. However, he was also extremely respectful toward Yimo. Although she had a lot of questions to ask, Xiao Lei knew that she wasn't familiar enough with Yimo. Thus, she asked Xiao Yu a load of questions, but Xiao Yu didn't know anything either. Their living places were organized by Fong Nan. However, Emo went out after dinner. As for where, no one knew, except for Joaigua, who had a vague clue. Emo went to the base of those 13 thugs, but to Emo's disappointment, it was empty. He really didn't know how these people didn't have any savings after doing zero capital business for so long, which broke Emo's wish of getting rich. Fong Nan came to Emo and the others' living place early in the morning. Right now, Fong Nan's Pu Dao clan was one of the 3 great clans of Flowing Snake. The worst of the 3 great clans was the 13 Turbos. But now, the 13 Turbos were no more. Thus, Pu Dao clan became one of the 2 biggest clans in Flowing Snake. Because of Fong Nan taking good care of Joaigua and the others, they were very safe in Flowing Snake, and no one dared to harass them. The second day, Joaigua bid Emo farewell as he was leaving Flowing Snake. I'll send a few brothers to help you get to the big roads. Seeing that Joaigua and the others were leaving, Fong Nan told them that he would send some of his men to help Joaigua going back safely. Emo didn't stop him. The 13 Turbos who blocked the road were already destroyed by him, so even without someone sending them, Joaigua and company would be in no danger. However, since Fong Nan took the initiative to send them, Emo didn't say anything. Xiaolei walked in front of Emo and mumbled, Emo, could you leave me your phone number? I would. I would like to be able to thank you for saving my life when you come to Beijing. Although she mumbled at the start, she became more confident at the end. After all, she was a journalist. Emo smiled and said, thanks, but it won't be necessary. In fact, I don't even have a phone, so I don't have a number to give you. You don't need to worry about such small things. Xiaolei became dazed. From her perspective, Emo wouldn't reject a beautiful lady like her who asked his number. No man would reject a pretty woman's invitation, and yet, Emo did. She didn't believe that Emo didn't have a phone. In these days, who wouldn't have a phone? Seeing Xiaolei's awkwardness, although Joaigua knew that Emo really didn't have a phone, he didn't correct her misunderstanding and only said, let's go. Otherwise, we won't make it to the plain to Xianshan today. Helpless, Xiaolei could only endure the rejection and left with Joaigua. As for a place to cultivate, since there was Fong Nan's help, Emo didn't need Joaigua's help anymore. The place Fong Nan arranged for Emo was a pagoda nearly 10 kilometers away from Flowing Snake. Initially, this place sheltered a wandering monk who knew Fong Nan, and it was built with Fong Nan's support. However, 3 years before, this monk suddenly disappeared, leaving behind this pagoda. If Emo didn't ask for such a rural place, Fong Nan would arrange a luxurious place for Emo. That day, Fong Nan got a few clan members to clean up the pagoda, while Emo just moved in. His main purpose was to grow the silver heart grass and research where the purple heart vine came from. According to Fong Nan, 7 years before, when he had been running for his life, he had found the body of a Tibetan Lama, one, in a valley near the border of Yu. On the body, he had discovered the wooden box and felt that this thing wasn't ordinary, so he had kept it, but only afterward did he realize that it was a dark purple root inside. In the end, Fong Nan had buried the body of the Lama nearby since he got the precious plant. Emo asked for a map from Fong Nan with the exact location of where he buried the Lama, as he wanted to see for himself. Since this Lama had a purple heart vine, he probably had something else with him as well, so there was no harm in checking it. The pagoda at which Emo lived wasn't small. It was more than 50 square meters, but more importantly, Emo opened up some land around the pagoda which he prepared to grow the silver heart grass. Emo didn't dare to plant all 39 seeds at once because he didn't know if this place was suitable for growing the grass, and if this place wasn't and he damaged all his seeds, he would be devastated. Although he wasn't sure if he were the only one to possess silver heart grass seeds, Emo knew that even if there were some elsewhere, he wouldn't necessarily be able to find them. He planted only 19 seeds, and then took care of their surroundings by making some protections. Afterward, Emo prepared to go into the forest. After all, the seeds needed a month to germinate, and he didn't make any progress in his cultivation right now, so he wanted to check the place where Fong Nan buried the Lama. After notifying Fong Nan, Emo left Flowing Snake and headed to the place where Fong Nan was running for his life before. Right now, the most important thing for him was to improve his strength. Notes: 1. Lama is a title for a teacher of the Dharma in Tibetan Buddhism. The name is similar to the Sanskrit term guru. Chapter 53. The results of the Song family's investigation. Chapter 53. The results of the Song family's investigation. The Song family of Beijing was definitely one of the most powerful families in China. In fact, they were also a member of the 5 greatest families of China. However, right now the atmosphere inside the Song family's compound wasn't comfortable for no other reason than that the only son of the leader of the family, Song Qiming, had died from a car crash, allegedly speeding through the night. Nevertheless, everyone in the Song family knew that Song Shaowen's death had nothing to do with speeding. Even if he had been in a rush and had been forced to be speeding along the way, he wouldn't be driving to a barren place like the Qinong Cliff. Furthermore, what would make him drive his car on the Fengjin Highway at midnight? Besides, how did the people of the Song family not know about Song Shaowen's character? He was the typical person afraid of troubles, so if he had something that required him to go past Fengjin Highway, he would only go during the day and definitely not at 3 to 4 a.m. What are the results of the investigation? As the elder of the Song family wasn't here, Song Qiming's words represented the authority of the Song family. Although he was calm looking on the surface, the veins on his hands were about to burst out, showing his rage. His only son was assassinated like this. Who had the guts to touch a member of the Song family? A middle-aged man stood up and said, "Leader, we have the results. Shaowen went to Hefeng a week ago, but only stayed there for 1 day. Afterward, he left Hefeng and was probably headed to Ninghai with Afa and Wang Chuan. However, there wasn't any video recording of Shaowen's car on the highway of Ningfeng, or rather, it could be said that all the traffic cameras were shut down during the time Shaowen entered and left Ninghai. I sent people to investigate at Ninghai, and Shaowen had indeed asked people to shut down the cameras there. The only reason Shaowen would go to Ninghai would be for that Ning Qingxue. However, Ning Qingxue didn't leave Ninghai and went to Yu State 2 days later, yet at the same time, Yimo, the one who married Ning Qingxue, disappeared the same night without a trace. Afterward, I completely examined the remnants of the car, but Yimo's body wasn't there, so either he had left the car midway, or he was never inside to begin with. According to the cameras at the Qinong Cliff Highway, Shaowen's BMW was driving properly, but suddenly charged off the road and fell onto the cliff. Could someone have drugged the driver? A 50-or-so-year-old man on the side asked, but the middle-aged man shook his head and said, "It can't be." According to the roadside cameras, Shaowen's car had been driving normally everywhere else, except for the part in Ninghai where the cameras were turned off. No anomaly occurred until this happened suddenly at the Qinong Cliff. Do you know where Yimo is now? Song Qiming asked another question, but the middle-aged only man shook his head and said, "Currently, we don't know his whereabouts, but we did find a surveillance system in Yimo and Ning Qingxue's house. However, the content had been deleted, and we are in the process of recovering it." At this moment, a 20-year-old or so man rushed inside while holding an USB in his hand, which he passed to the middle-aged man and said, "Uncle Hai, the content has been recovered. Check it immediately." Before the middle-aged man even spoke, Song Qiming said coldly. The USB was inserted into the computer, and the huge screen showed Yimo's life, as well as the scene in which Song Shaowen and his henchmen left with Yimo, so it does have something to do with him. The 50-or-so-year-old man looked at the fast-forwarded images and said in a fury. He didn't even think about who ran into someone else's house in the middle of the night. He was just angry that Song Shaowen died after leaving there. It seems that B*TCH of the Ning family didn't know at the time, so she probably deleted this afterward. A skinny man sitting below Song Qiming said, "Even if she didn't know, this is related to her. There's no way that our Song family is going to let her go so easily," Uncle Hai, who was responsible for the investigation, said. Song Qiming's face was very bleak, but he waved his hand and said, "I won't let the Ning family go like that. But it's not just about Ning Qingxue. I will destroy the entire Ning family forever. Don't touch the Ning family for now. Capture that useless man of the Yi family first. It would be best to take him back to Beijing secretly. I will let him know that it isn't so easy to kill a member of the Song family." He caught his breath before speaking again. "Song Hai, you will be responsible for investigating where Yimo went and try to bring him back to Beijing in the shortest time possible. If that can't be done, Then bring his head back as a sacrifice in front of Shawan. Also, you need to investigate how Yimo made Shawan drive off the cliff. Yes, leader. Songhai replied straightforwardly. That 50-or-so-year-old man frowned and said, this Yimo is rather strange. He married the girl from Ning family, but why does he always sit under the tree? Is he able to cultivate qi? I heard a lot of ancient martial arts families like to sit and cultivate qi. If he really does have an ancient martial arts master, then this might be troublesome. Uncle Shin, I don't think this is possible. Yimo is a disabled man. Even the Yi family didn't want him. Would a legendary ancient martial arts cultivator see any potential in him? Besides, even if he was picked up by someone, why was there not a single image of his master in that month of recording? Uncle Shin, I think you're thinking too much, Songhai said. The man called Uncle Shin nodded and said, it'd be best if this were the case. If he really did have an ancient martial art cultivator supporting him, then even if we're one of the 5 greatest families, it would probably be very unlikely for us to take revenge. The day that the Song family took away the recording from Ning Hai, Ning Qingxue knew it and immediately felt a burning sensation in her heart as she regretted not destroying that disc. She didn't think that the Song family would really come here to investigate, and it was implausible to believe that the Song family would not be able to recover the details. The only way was to contact Yimo immediately and notify him that the Song family knew about the truth. However, she didn't have or know any way to contact Yimo. After giving it plenty of thought, Ning Qingxue decided to tell her mom and said that she wanted to find Yimo, which surprised her mother immensely. She didn't think that so much had actually happened during her short trip, and even Song Shaowen's death was related to the Ning family. Qingxue, right now it's not about finding Yimo, but about how we are going to deal with Song family's revenge. Clearly, with Song Qiming's character, there's no way he'd let this pass, especially you. Ning Qingshue's mother had a great insight to this. Ning Qingxue shook her head and said, I owe Yimo for this, and now I have dragged you down as well. I'm really useless, and I'm too naive sometimes. I'm sorry, mother. Her mother sighed and said, although our family has separated from the Ning family, the Song family can't deal with us that easily. Qingxue, don't worry. First tell me exactly what happened between you and Yimo. Chapter 54. The Leisurely Person in the Forest. Chapter 54. The leisurely person in the forest. Although Fong Nan gave him an approximate direction, Fong Nan couldn't remember it too clearly after all these years. And even though Fong Nan asked if he should come with him to help find it, Yimo knew that it would take a long time to find. Besides, the 13 turbos were just newly exterminated, so the resources of Flowing Snake needed to be redistributed, and there were many things Fong Nan needed to do. As such, he didn't allow Fong Nan to come with him. Plus, he would probably be faster by himself in the forest anyway. Yimo had been searching in this endless forest for 3 days, yet he still hadn't found where Fong Nan buried the llama. However, he did cross paths with danger many times. In only one day, he had met a wild cheetah, 2 wild wolves, and 20 different types of venomous snakes. The most crucial information that Fong Nan gave him were 2 evergreen trees in the surrounding. Yet these past few days, Yimo hadn't been able to find even one, much less 2. However, what Yimo lacked the least was patience. Although it was the depth of the forest, he decided to look farther and deeper the 4th day. However, he needed to fill his stomach before he went in. As Yimo roasted a wild rabbit, he was organizing in his head the places he had already looked over, when a few clear gunshots interrupted his thought process. As Yimo raised his head, he saw a robust man that was around 30 years old, who stumbled over and was holding a triple-edged military knife on his hand. The man was covered in wounds, his clothes were ragged and torn, but from what Yimo saw, the heaviest injury was the gunshot on his waist. Although this shot was near the side, blood had already dyed red his ragged clothes. At the same time Yimo saw this man, he also saw Yimo and became immediately shocked. He didn't think that he could find someone leisurely roasting a wild rabbit this deep inside the forest. Even with him running for his life, his starved stomach still couldn't resist but make a sound. Yimo looked at this fleeing man and immediately felt a familiar chi from him, which also had a feeling of a killer's chi to it as well. similar to Wang Su, the one he had met at Su Jingwen's birthday party. They should be from the same group. Yimo immediately formed a conclusion in his head. However, he didn't know who would be chasing him like this. Just when Yimo was thinking about Wang Su, more hurried footsteps could be heard behind the man, and soon, 3 men equipped with guns appeared in front of Yimo. The heavily injured man looked apologetically at Yimo but didn't say anything. The 3 men stopped after seeing the injured man had stopped. They also looked at Yimo, who was roasting a rabbit by the fire, with surprise. After all, not anyone could roast rabbits in a wild forest like this. This place wasn't safe. Even if you wanted to roast something, you would choose a quieter place, not here, where there were nowhere to hide in case of danger. None of the 5 people here said a word, and the atmosphere suddenly became awkward. Only the sound and the smell of Yimo roasting his rabbit were still lingering in the air. The 3 looked at each other and nodded. Then the slightly darker man said, "Friend, there's no business for you here. How about you move aside? We just want to capture the man who escaped here." The accent was a bit weird. Yimo stared weirdly at the man who talked and was just about to say, "This place isn't your home. Why should I move?" But the other man suddenly raised his gun and threatened to shoot Yimo. However, before his fingers even pulled the trigger, a few hardly discernible sounds fluttered through the air, interrupting his movement. Suddenly appeared on all 3 of them a red, in the middle of their forehead, and then blood gushed out from it. The 3 of them looked at Yimo with their eyes wide open in disbelief as they collapsed on the ground. They didn't realize how anything could happen this fast as this was, at most, a single breath of time. Yimo didn't like to kill people, but he was merciless to those who would threaten his life. The nails in his hands were only here to prevent someone pointing a gun at him ever again. The heavily injured man stared, his eyes wide open, unable to believe what had just taken place. The 3 who hunted him for so long were so easily killed by a man leisurely roasting a rabbit. It wasn't surprising that he dared to roast rabbits here. He was an unbelievable being. "The rabbit is ready. Do you want some?" Yimo looked at the man who didn't speak for a long time and smiled plainly. He had a good impression of Wang Su, and since this man most likely was connected to Wang Su, it didn't matter if he invited him to some food. "Ah, okay, thank you. I'm Guiqi. Thanks for saving my life just then." Guiqi saluted with his fist as his face became calmer. Yimo waved his hand and smiled. "It's nothing. Fate brought this encounter. I'm Yimo." After slicing half of the rabbit, he took a few herbs from his backpack and crushed it before sprinkling it on top of it. Guiqi was confused as he watched the scene that didn't seem to be very hygienic. Although he had finished with the herb, Yimo didn't give that part of the rabbit to Guiqi. Instead, he said, "Come over, I'll check your wounds." Hearing Yimo's words and seeing what Yimo did before, Guiqi seemed to have understood that Yimo was fumbling with herbs for his wounds, so he quickly walked over. When Guiqi walked in front of him, Yimo raised his hand and, as he used his palm to hit the opposite side of Guiqi's gun wound, a bullet flew out like a comet landing far away in the woods. Meanwhile, Guiqi didn't even feel a pinch of pain as the bullet from his waist was taken out and was shocked. How is this person so powerful? This was his first time seeing a bullet being taken out like this. As though he did not see Guiqi's shock, Yimo passed over the half of the rabbit in his hand, took out 2 more herbs and gave them to Guiqi. "Chew on the herbs and spread it on your gun wound and then eat this rabbit. You should be fine after that." After he had finished, Yimo didn't pay any more attention to Guiqi and started to eat his own half of the rabbit. Meanwhile, Guiqi was fascinated to discover that not only did his wounds not hurt anymore, but there was also a feeling of coolness and started to wonder what kind of herb could have effects so potent. Immediately, Yimo became extremely mysterious in his eyes. This was no longer gratitude, but an unknown feeling of reverence. In a forest full of danger, he not only leisurely roasted rabbits, but he could heal his gun wound so easily and even took out his bullet just with a palm. This person appeared so mighty as he killed the special forces without blinking. He definitely wasn't you. So Guiqi immediately said, "The 3 people before should be you. Our squad was ambushed by them on a mission, and apart from me, there are 2 team members who have died and another 3 survivors trapped in a cave. but I think they are probably in their hands at this point. Meanwhile, I escaped to find support. Emo frowned and didn't say anything. He knew what Guichi meant, but he wasn't a soldier. As for a team that was beaten like this by you, Emo was contemptuous. Although he didn't want to help, Emo had already a very bad impression of you since, as soon as he came to Flowing Snake, he was blockaded by a group of them. Even though he killed them all in the end, he was still disgusted by them. Although I really want to help you, I have things to do here. I'm searching for something. Emo stood up and was prepared to leave. He didn't know Guichi at all, and he saved his life just then. Besides, he had things to do. If it were convenient, then he wouldn't mind. But if he had to go out of his way to help, then he would feel that it was troublesome. Chapter 55. Lend a Helping Hand. Chapter 55. Lend a helping hand, elder brother Yi. Our instructor has told us that the one who reaches the first place among us, or the strongest, is the elder brother. Although I'm a few years older than you, I know you're not an ordinary person, and you definitely are the person who would reach the first spot. So following our instructor's words, I'll refer to you as elder brother. I don't understand the great ideologies of a man's responsibilities in the affairs of the world, but the you bastards have been burning, raiding, and killing at our borderlines. There's no evil that they won't commit. 30 years ago, our army started to retaliate, but the southern you abuse and humiliate before killing the Chinese in their territory. They burn Chinese factories, and countless compatriots have been brutally murdered. Although a few decades have passed, these devils haven't stopped their actions, and even though it's more subtle, they are still a threat to us. This time, a few of my team members were surrounded by the you, so even if I, Guichi, die, I will save them. On the behalf that we're all Chinese, I want to ask for your help. Moreover, since we're really familiar with the surroundings here, if you help me rescue my teammates, I'm willing to help you find what you're looking for. Guichi finished his monologue and looked at Emo fervently. Emo stayed silent for a moment. He didn't have any good impression for those you devils, and as for Guichi helping him with his search, that wouldn't be necessary. He had already been looking for a few days, so he didn't think that Guichi and his team could help him find it. However, this Guichi had some reason to his words. He was a Chinese right now, and since he should be helping out with this simple task. Thinking about this, Emo nodded and said, "Brother was right. Don't mind my words just then. I didn't think it through. Let's be on our way then. Meanwhile, tell me the situation in detail. A few pesky you are no threat to me." "Thank you, elder brother Yi." Guichi saw that Emo had agreed and saluted with his fist delightedly. He understood that Emo wasn't a heartless person. He was probably living in reclusion for some time and had faint views of some concepts. Guichi picked up 3 guns and gave one to Emo, but Emo waved his hand. "No need, I don't like to use guns. It's troublesome to hold in your hand." Guichi suddenly remembered the situation when Emo killed those strong soldiers with his bare hands and gave up on the thought. After hearing Guichi's details on the situation, Emo finally understood that it wasn't that Guichi and his squad were weak. There were 6 people in Guichi's squad, and when they were doing a mission on the borderline, they had been ambushed in the forest. Although the attacker didn't show their identity, Guichi firmly believed that they were you. In the ambush, 2 people died, and 3 were trapped. Only Guichi managed to escape. The place they were trapped at was called the Hanchan Cave. Guichi said that if it wasn't that the geology benefited them, their whole team would have been annihilated. When they were ambushed, they tried to break through, but the only one who managed to escape was him, and if it had not been for Emo, even he wouldn't have been able to go any further. The Hanchan Cave wasn't very close, and Guichi led Emo on a 2-hour walk before arriving. Just when they neared the cave, they heard a gunshot. When the gunshot sounded, Guichi immediately said in joy, "They haven't been captured yet. This is my squad member's gun. I can tell by the sound." Meanwhile, Emo was also overwhelmed with joy. However, it was because he had realized that the place Fong Nan was describing was exactly like this Hanchan Cave. Although he hadn't seen the evergreen yet, the surrounding was exactly as Fong Nan had described. It seemed that he needed to be more willing to help people. Otherwise, he was sure that he wouldn't have been able to find this place in 2 hours. Elder brother Yi, what now? Although Guoqi was an elite in the special forces, he knew that he was a far cry from Yimo. Now that he knew his teammates weren't in enemy hands, his thinking immediately became more fluid. However, he was aware that even if his teammates weren't in enemy hands, they probably wouldn't be able to last long. They were most likely going to run out of ammo very soon. Otherwise, if the team had enough ammunition, they wouldn't fire so scarcely. How many people are against us? Yimo returned to his senses. If he wanted to find what he was looking for, first, he had to finish off all the people that trapped Guoqi's teammates here. From the number of gunshot sounds during the ambush, I think there were at least 20 people, and at the time, we had also finished off 3 to 4 men. It looks like my teammates haven't been captured yet, and my guess is that they are trying to hold out until the nightfall before breaking through the lockdown. However, the enemy should be aware of this too, and wouldn't let my teammates last that long. I think they might be thinking of a strategy right now. Guoqi's reply was quite precise. Yimo nodded and said, "You stay carefully behind me, and don't fire unless absolutely necessary. I'll take care of the rest." Guoqi knew that Yimo silently killed 3 special ops at that time, so he didn't have the slightest doubt about his words. If he were in the shadows, then 16 people really weren't enough to deal with someone as mighty as him. He even wondered who was stronger between Yimo or Su Shi, who the authority sent to teach them for 3 days. While Guoqi was still thinking, Yimo had already moved out. The Hanshan cave was within a valley, so this place was easy to defend but hard to invade. Although he didn't know why those people chose to ambush Guoqi here, Yimo knew that it was either due to a time constraint or Guoqi's team was able to retreat here in time. Yimo's spirit sense could already reach out to a radius of 7 meters, and when it was close to the Hanshan cave's valley, Yimo immediately discovered 6 people hidden not far away. If Guoqi didn't make the wrong judgment, then it meant that they had reinforcements elsewhere. There was a loud bang as a bomb exploded outside the Hanshan cave, creating a huge mushroom cloud. It seemed that these people didn't want to kill them, but were using the bombs to threaten the people inside. Yimo shot out 6 nails which went into the back of their heads or into their temples. The 6 men died quickly and silently. The outside of the Hanshan cave had a fan shape, so although it was easy to hold the position, it was also incredibly easy for the people from the outside to trap them. Yimo walked along the fan shape and killed his way through. Unfortunately, when he killed the 21st person, he was finally discovered by the last 3 people because the person Yimo had just killed was communicating with them, and his voice just suddenly dropped. From his cries for help, they immediately found Yimo. 3 gunshots resounded. Although Yimo's spirit sense had scanned their movement, and he dodged at the right time, there was still a blood slash on his arm. These people were much stronger than the 13 turbos, and the guns in their hands were also much more sophisticated than the trash used by the 13 turbos. He was actually injured. Enraged, Yimo shot out 6 nails at once. 2 people were killed straight away as 2 nails reached them, while the remaining 4 nails smashed to mesh the face of the man who hurt him. "Come over," Yimo called to Guoqi. Of course, Guoqi had realized by now that there definitely weren't just 16 or 17 people. 6 or 7 more people came. He said embarrassingly, "I apologize, elder brother Yi. It seems that I had the wrong information. Hurry up and meet up with your team." Yimo waved his hand and said. Chapter 56. Qi Wanqing. Chapter 56. Qi Wanqing, Captain. That bomb just exploded. But why nothing else followed after that? And what was that gunshot afterward? Did we get reinforcements? I don't know what's going on. I'll go outside and have a look. You guys stay here. Wanqing, are you all right? I'm fine, but leave me a grenade. The woman called Wanqing who spoke last had a pale face. The other 2 people knew what she had meant. Ammunitions were getting low, and if she couldn't defend herself anymore, she would commit suicide while taking as many lives with her as possible. "Captain Liu, are you guys all right?" Guoqi started yelling as soon as he came in. It sounded like Brother Guo. "Right, it is Brother Guo. Did we get reinforcements? Are the U-Devils finally finished?" The youth with a machine gun in his hand asked, surprised. "Feng Wei, you're right, it is Guoqi. How did he get in? Wasn't he?" No way. The woman who was they referred as Captain shook her head halfway. What's going on, Guoqi? Captain Lu asked as soon as she saw Guoqi coming to the entrance of the cave. Guoqi saw the three people in the cave and was relieved as he noticed Qi Wanqing was still able to hold herself against the cave wall. I have requested for reinforcements, and we have already finished off all the you devils outside. Are you guys all right? We're fine. It's just that Wanqing was shot in the thigh. By the way, which squad saved us? Captain Lu looked at Guoqi with suspicion, thinking, which team could come here this quickly? Even reinforcements couldn't get here so fast. Was it Wolf Howl's people? No, I met a friend in the forest just then. He saved me and helped me deal with the 20 or so you devils outside. Guoqi caught on with his breath and said, What? You're saying one person killed more than 20 special ops? And this person is a friend you just met? Oh, Guoqi, you do know how to kid. Captain Lu exclaimed immediately. Qi Wanqing and Feng Wei also looked at Guoqi with suspicion. If they didn't deeply understand Guoqi as a person, they would even think that Guoqi had betrayed them. Guoqi hurriedly said, Captain Lu, this is real. However, that friend ambushed them. He didn't fight them head-on, but he killed them off one by one in the shadows. I followed behind him and saw very clearly. He was only discovered by the last few, and they opened fire. Feng Wei then came to the realization and said, I heard those you devils opened fire at the end, so that's what it was. Even if he ambushed them, this ability is definitely absurdly strong. Let's go, Guoqi. Show me this friend of yours. Wanqing, I'll help carry you. Captain Lu said to the woman behind her who was injured and didn't care if she would agree or not. She just carried her on her back. Wanqing has a gunshot wound, but my friend can cure it in a matter of minutes. Look, I was shot here this morning, and now it has a scab already. It has only been a few hours. He really is amazing. Fortunately, I had the chance to meet him when I was running away, but you wouldn't even believe what he was doing at that time. Guoqi spoke those words quickly. That's amazing. It really did form a scab. Feng Wei had been so amazed by the wound at Guoqi's waist that he couldn't help but exclaimed. After a while, he remembered about Guoqi's last part and asked, By the way, Guoqi, what was he doing when you met him? Guoqi smiled and said, He was leisurely roasting a rabbit in the middle of nowhere. He even gave me half of it after casually taking care of 3 men in a flash and healing my wound. He is definitely the strongest senpai I have met before. There are actually people this strong. I have to make him become my master, but he must be quite old. Sigh. If only Lu Chan and Yunnan were still here. Fan Wei's eyes became glum. Hearing Feng Wei talk about Lu Chan and Yunnan, these few people all fell into silence, and suddenly, the atmosphere grew heavy. Ah, what? A pile. After walking out of the cave, those few people immediately saw the 24 people Yimo killed stacked into a pile, but Yimo wasn't here. He actually killed that many. He is way too *king amazing. I must bow down to him as my master. Fan Wei exclaimed once again. Don't bother trying. Brother Yi is a powerful person out of this world. Do you really think he's going to take you in? Brother Yi. Brother Yi. After finishing, Guoqi called out. You all came out? Then you can leave. I still have some things to do, so I won't be staying anymore. Yimo suddenly appeared from somewhere and smiled plainly. Guoqi was stunned for a moment and immediately said, Huh, elder brother Yi, you're leaving? Oh, let me introduce. This is the captain of the Eagle Hunter, Luolin. The woman on her back is called Qi Wanqing, and this is Feng Wei. He really admires you. Captain, this is the Yimo I told you of that helped us. Yimo, hello. My name is Lu Lin. I'm really grateful for you this time. I never expected you to be this young. I thought you would be at least 30 or 40. Luo Lin hurried to extend a hand and shake with Yimo. The gratitude in her eyes was evident. Big brother Yi, you really are so strong and so young. My name is Feng Wei. Would you take me as your disciple? Feng Wei's eyes shot out intense beams as he looked at Yimo with admiration. Yimo waved his hand and said, I only got them through ambushes. I'm only half learned myself. How can I take disciples? Don't bring up this anymore. Qi Wanqing looked at Yimo, and her eyes brightened up. The reason she wanted to join the army and even got into the Eagle Hunter Squad through her hard work was because of her admiration for the strength of soldiers. Furthermore, her grandpa was a soldier, and her father was a soldier. However, her father didn't have a son and only had her as a daughter. She even had an argument with her father over some things and didn't want to stay home, so she used Hua Mulan as her idol and joined the military. If Yemo was really as powerful as Guoqi had said, then he was a partner that she could approve. Usually, she had been very cold to people. Firstly, it was because she was too beautiful, so if she wasn't cold in the army, then there would be too many flies flying around her. Secondly, she felt that there was not a single person that deserved her admiration in the army. Although her instructors were unyielding, they couldn't finish off more than 20 enemies all by themselves, even with an ambush tactic. Of course, her cold personality was mainly due to family reasons and her upbringing. The only one she slightly admired was Su Shi. He came to her squad to teach them for a few days, and he really was strong. However, he left a few days after. Yemo, who was in front of her eyes, seemed a bit different from Su Shi, and yet, she didn't know exactly how. It was just a vague feeling. Elder brother Yi, this is my squad member Qi Wanqing. She is wounded in the leg. Could you perhaps treat it for her? Guoqi looked desperately at Yemo. Yemo looked at the woman on Lu Lin's back. She was just a bit over 20. Her hair was very short, and her face was beautiful and picturesque like a drawing. However, she was a little pale, probably due to the loss of blood. Yemo shook his head and thought that this type of girl should be staying at home. Why would she come to the country border forest to fight? Note 1. Hua Mulan was a female general in ancient China who fought for her country disguised as a man. Disney made a movie out of her story. Another famous woman was Joan of Arc, or Jeanne d'Arc in French, who kept her hair short and men soldiers' clothing through her military campaigns. Chapter 57. Treatment. Chapter 57. Treatment. Put her down. I'll have a look. Yemo had already noticed the gunshot wound in Qi Wanqing's leg. However, Lu Lin carried Qi Wanqing some distance away and put her down in an obscure brush before saying, "Please, Mr. Yi, while we deal with the bodies, could you help treat Wanqing? There are some spoils of war that we need to collect." She didn't wait for Yemo's answer and left. Yemo nodded. This Captain Lu did things fast and was very straightforward. She didn't even ask how he was going to treat her, or even if he could treat her, and she didn't have the intention of asking Qi Wanqing either. Lu Lin left. Qi Wanqing looked down at the position of the wound on her leg, and then looked at Yemo. She felt a bit awkward. After all, this posture wasn't the best. She believed Guoqi's words. Since he said this Yemo could cure her, then he definitely could. However, the wound was on her thigh, and she hoped that he didn't plan on taking off her pants. Yemo looked at Qi Wanqing's wound and frowned. It wasn't that he couldn't cure her, but this position was a bit awkward. What if he put his hands there and this woman started rambling? He really hated doing things that were arduous yet possibly punishing, and seeing this woman's cold complexion, she really might start protesting. As she noticed that Yemo was looking at her wound and frowned without talking, Qi Wanqing immediately understood what was going on, and immediately, her impression of Yemo improved. She used a voice that was so low that even she could barely hear. "Yi? Big brother Yi, you can treat me, it's okay." Yemo was stunned for a moment and didn't know how to reply. He didn't think that she would take the initiative to ask him to treat her. He started to have a better impression of Qi Wanqing, who seemed cold on the outside, but wasn't that indifferent on the inside. The reason he felt it was troublesome was that Qi Wanqing's wound was strapped tight by her camo suit. Unlike Guoqi, who was wearing ragged clothes, he only needed a palm to force out the bullet. However, Qi Wanqing's wound was strapped very tight by her camo suit. Now that Qi Wanqing said she didn't mind and asked him to treat her, he immediately had a good feeling towards her and thought that she was a very genuine girl. Thinking about this, he also smiled. In fact, your wound isn't something troublesome. However, there are only two ways. First, you take off your pants, and I'll help you treat it. The other way would be to poke a hole in your pants. Look, no need. I'll take it off. I didn't bring another pair, Qi Wanqing said, and took off her clothes in her own accord. Since she had agreed, she wouldn't be hesitant. Yemo's good impression towards this straightforward girl rose once again. Seeing her difficulty in moving, he hurried over and said, "Let me, thank you." From the first time Qi Wanqing set eyes on Yemo, she had felt that he was a pretty good person. Besides, when she saw his hesitation at the position of her wound and how his eyes never left that spot, she felt more trust toward Yemo and actually let him take off her pants. Although Yemo's hand didn't touch her skin directly, she could still feel the warmth of his hands, feeling a heartfelt comfort. Yemo didn't take her pants off completely and just took it down to her wound and strapped it up. However, Qi Wanqing felt this way to be more intimate, and her face immediately became flushed. As she didn't dare to look at Yemo's movements again, she turned her head, deep in thought. Qi Wanqing's youthful white skin struck a chord with Yemo. Her underwear seemed to be white checkered. However, Yemo didn't dare to look and focused his mind on the task. At the same time, Yemo palmed on Qi Wanqing's thigh, and a bullet flew out in a small spurt of blood. Afterward, Yemo took out a few herbs and chewed it a few times before applying it to her wound. With the help of his qi, the medicinal power was quickly digested into the wound. Finally, he took out the dressing from his bag and strapped it to Qi Wanqing's wound and pulled up her pants. The whole process took barely a few minutes. The reason he chewed the herbs instead of letting her doing it was that he was afraid that she would be too slow, and since girls needed some face, it wasn't good if she had her pants off for too long. Qi Wanqing only realized that he was done when Yemo pulled up her pants. She didn't even see the entire process. "Brother Yi, have you finished treating me already?" Qi Wanqing's blush hadn't retreated and was a little dazed. It's done. You will probably be completely fine tomorrow morning." Yemo smiled and said a few words. He used his qi to help her heal her wound, so she should recuperate faster than Guaqi. It really doesn't hurt. There's also a feeling of coolness. Thank you, Brother Yi. You really are amazing. For the first time, Qi Wanqing felt that there was such a thing as magic in the world, and her previous awkwardness had long disappeared. Which doctor could do what Yemo did just then? Taking out a bullet in a few minutes and treating a gunshot wound so easily. Thank you, Brother Yi. Qi Wanqing also felt Yemo wasn't a normal person, just like Guaqi had said. Brother Yi, do you mind if I ask you what you do for a living? This was actually the first time Qi Wanqing asked about a man and felt her face burning up, but she desperately wanted to know. She also knew that it was fate to be able to meet someone like Yemo. Not everyone could meet someone with such ability. Yemo opened his mouth, but swallowed the words, "Let's go." Qi Wanqing asked him something like that meant that she didn't have the intentions of leaving right now, so he could only casually say, "I don't have a stable job now, they're all temporary. As for what I do, if I'm lucky, I can earn quite a lot, but when I'm not, I had been kicked out by the city management once, hee. Yemo wasn't lying. He helped treat people, sell at roadside stalls, sell charms, and even help people deal with gangs. Qi Wanqing looked at Yemo in disbelief. She couldn't believe that someone like Yemo didn't have a job and was even doing casual jobs. Brother Yi, thank you for saving my life. Qi Wanqing couldn't even finish before she was interrupted by Yemo. Yemo smiled as he interrupted her. Even if I didn't help with your wound, you would have been fine. I didn't save your life. Qi Wanqing smiled sweetly, which stunned Yemi as he stared at her. He didn't think that the cold-looking Qi Wanqing could have such an attractive smile. Seeing that Yemo seemed to be entranced while looking at her, Qi Wanqing actually felt joyful and hurriedly said, Brother Yi, I'm not talking about this. If you didn't come, the rest of the squad and I wouldn't even be able to live and perhaps would have been our asterisk pet. I'm really grateful to you. Yemo nodded as he knew that Qi Wanqing was speaking the truth. He contemplated for a while and responded, Actually, I feel that a girl like you aren't suitable for the army, but of course, this is just my view. Unexpectedly, Qi Wanqing nodded and said, Brother Yi, you're right. Originally, I admired the military lifestyle, so I have worked very hard myself until I finally entered the Eagle Hunter squad. However, judging from now, perhaps I'm really not suited to live in the military. After thinking for a while, Qi Wanqing continued once again, Brother Yi, I want to request your help for something. Chapter 58. Found the place. Chapter 58. Found the place. Emo smiled and said, "Tell me, as long as it's convenient and not troublesome, I'm willing to help you." He felt good toward Qi, so if he could help her, he wouldn't mind spending some of his time for her. I have a cousin that opened a company in the Jiangnan province at the city of Luotsang, but she doesn't have enough people right now. Would you have the time to go work at her company? It's actually really simple. You just need to survey the factory, and that's about it, Qi said, beaming with joy. She suddenly realized that she had smiled more in these 20 or 30 minutes than she did for an entire year. Emo immediately understood that this little girl was trying to help him out, but was scared that his dignity wouldn't allow him to accept, so she told it, masking it as a favor from him. Otherwise, how could there be such good thing? He didn't need to do anything and would just receive money. That would be too good to be true. This was a very meticulous girl. However, she didn't understand him well enough and was afraid of hurting his self-esteem. He smiled slightly as he gave her an answer. "Thank you, Qi. If I want to look for a job, I will definitely go to your cousin's company. To be honest, I really don't know how to do anything anyway." Emo couldn't just reject Qi goodwill so straightforwardly. Even if he had wanted to work at her cousin's factory, he couldn't do so around this time. He still needed to grow his silver heart grass. Until it was fully ripe, he would not leave. "You don't need to do anything." As she said that, Qi realized that her words were too obvious and quickly added, "You just need to walk around in the factory." "Wait, Brother Yi. I'll give you my number. You should save it in your phone just in case." Qi was prepared to give her number to Emo, who simply replied, "Sorry, I don't have a phone." Qi was stunned. Who didn't have a phone these days? But looking at Emo's appearance and the fact that he didn't have a job, perhaps he couldn't afford one. Seeing Qi troubled look, Emo smiled and said, "You just need to tell me once, and I will be able to remember." Qi looked at Emo with an air showing that she didn't really believe Emo's words. Even if he remembered now, he would still forget later. She thought Emo was just embarrassed to reject her. However, this didn't trouble her and immediately thought of a way. She took out an exquisite hair brush from her pocket and used a small knife to carve out some numbers on it before giving it to Emo. Finally, she was relieved. Emo took her brush that still had a faint aroma and looked at it. He smiled and said, "This number is really unique." "Thank you, Qi. If there is a time when I need a job, I will call this number for sure." Qi seemed very delighted to see that Emo accepted it, and immediately, she said, "Brother Yi, could you not call me that way? It sounds weird to me. Just call me Wanqing from now on, or my dad calls me Shaoqing. You could call me that way too." "Okay, Wanqing," Emo said helplessly. He just heard her teammates call her Qi. As she heard Emo calling her Wanqing, Qi seemed jubilant. She completely forgot about going back and instead continued her questioning. "Brother Yi, I heard from Guoqi that you were trying to find something around here. Did you find it?" Emo shook his head and said, "Not yet, but it should be nearby. There should be 2 evergreen trees and a valley. I think the valley might be this place, but I haven't seen any evergreen yet." "Evergreen? I know. When we hid inside the valley, I saw a place with 2 evergreens. It isn't too far from here. Brother Yi, I'll take you there." Qi suddenly felt pleased that she was able to help Emo. Before Emo could say anything, Lu Lin's voice resounded not far from where they were, and Qi replied to her, "Sister Lin, I have some business with Brother Yi. I'll be back soon." Her voice sounded crisp and touching. Lu Lin was astonished. Since when did Qi have such a cheerful spirit? Her tone was full of joy. Wasn't she always really cold? Did they? Lu Lin shook her head and turned away. She couldn't understand Qi change no matter what. Qi also stood up a bit shakily, but Emo caught her and said, "I'll carry you." Emo didn't have any ulterior motives. He just wanted to reach that place faster and see what that llama left behind. If he really could find large amounts of purple heartvine, it would be crucial to him. Thank you, Brother Yi." Qi laid on Emo's back without any protest. For her, Since he had already seen her without her pants, carrying her wasn't such a big deal. She wasn't a shy girl, and Yimo highly approved of Qi Wanqing for that. He didn't know if all soldiers were so frank. There were 2 twirls of softness on his back, and although it was very comfortable, Yimo didn't think about doing anything else at all. Captain Liu, did Brother Yi carry Qi Wanqing on her back? Did I see wrong? Feng Wei stared at Yimo and Qi Wanqing with his eyes wide open. He rubbed his eyes. Qi Wanqing, who always didn't like talking to male squad members and was even constantly cold, actually let a man who she saw for the first time carry her on his back. This was too absurd. You didn't see wrong. Now hurry up and pack up these guns. They must have some business and we'll be back soon, Lu Lin said coldly. Guoqi also saw Yimo and Qi Wanqing disappear and nodded. Brother Yi is a heroic man. Although Wanqing is cold to people, perhaps it's because she hadn't met the right one for her yet, and who knows, it might be Brother Yi. They are a very good match, Brother Yi. Do you think I'm too unreserved? Qi Wanqing, who laid on Yimo's back, suddenly said. Yimo almost stumbled and immediately said, No, I really like your unrestrained personality. You are very frank about everything. Qi Wanqing hesitated. Brother Yi, I'm usually really cold when I'm with my teammates. I don't really like to talk, and it's even possible that I didn't speak as much in a month with them than what I have said to you since we met. Ever since my parents divorced, I joined the army under my family's influence, and due to my father, I have a natural sense of rejection toward men. I don't know why, but, Brother Yi, I feel a sense of nature and freedom on you. Those are things I have always longed. Therefore, it might be why I didn't have the feeling of rejection toward you. I'm not usually so unrestrained as you might have imagined. So, after finishing her sentence, Qi Wanqing looked worriedly at Yimo, afraid that Yimo wouldn't like her personality. Yimo smiled as he had understood what Qi Wanqing meant. She could sense the feeling of nature and freedom on him. This could only mean that she had a spiritual root, making Yimo look at her through another lens. On this earth scarce of spirit qi, a place where cultivation resources were close to none, it was indeed hard to have a spiritual root. Live according to your own will, there's no need to compromise yourself for others. If you like them, you like them. If you don't, you don't. It's here. There really are 2 evergreens here. Yimo had just seen the 2 evergreens while talking to Qi Wanqing. Note: 1. The spiritual root is the determining factor on whether you can cultivate and how fast you can cultivate. It allows the person to be naturally connected to the spirit qi in the world. Chapter 59. Tibetan Characters. Chapter 59. Tibetan Characters, right? It is here. Qi Wanqing was also happy. It was as though she helped Yimo do something remarkable. Yimo put Qi Wanqing down and walked in between the 2 evergreen trees, and indeed, he found a lump on the ground. He found a wooden stick and carefully picked open the soil. There were a dead person's bones surrounded by a few rocks, and beside him was a plastic bag that was covered very tightly. However, many places in the plastic bag were starting to corrode. Yimo slowly picked the plastic bag with the stick and looked beside the bones, but found nothing else. The Lama must have placed this plastic bag in his clothes around the chest, and after the body had started to corrode, it fell off. Therefore, Feng Nin couldn't see it at the time. He slowly picked open the plastic bag, and inside was a map made out of the skin of a goat that was also starting to rot. However, this goatskin map seemed to have been specially made. Although it was rotting, the content on it could still be read clearly. Yimo stared carefully at the goatskin map for a while, and what looked like to be a desert appeared to have been drawn on it. There were even some characters that Yimo didn't recognize. Just when Yimo was troubled over the map of the desert and those strange characters, a faint aroma traveled into his nose, and a few strands of hair fell on his neck, making him a bit itchy. Yimo immediately realized that Qi Wanqing was looking at this map from behind him. Yimo moved aside and said with a troubled face, I don't know these characters, and now I can't even move the map, or it would probably shatter into pieces. Because Yimo moved aside, Qi Wanqing immediately realized her intimate position. She was a bit awkward when she heard Yimo's words and hurriedly say, Brother Yi, I know these characters. They're Tibetan characters. My grandfather stayed in Tibet for a long time before. He taught me these words. Wanqing, do you really understand these words? Hurry and tell me. Yimo was planning on to remember these words completely, but now that Qi Wanqing knew, he was immediately delighted. The characters on there are incomplete, but I can read a few. Ku Lake, Taklamakan, Luo Bu, and Holy Door. However, I think that Taklamakan is probably referring to the biggest desert in our country, the Taklamakan Desert. This desert is also called the Sea of Death, and it is situated in southern Xinjiang in the Darim Basin. This map should be pointing there, and the route really looks like to be leading to the Darim Basin. Qi Wanqing interpreted all the characters on the map. However, due to the fractured nature of the map, the interpretation wasn't complete. However, she added in her own understanding. After hearing her words, Yimo mumbled to himself, so that's where it leads. Looking at the direction on the map, it really does guide to that place. Got it. Thank you, Wanqing. Qi Wanqing smiled sweetly and said, Actually, I'm really happy that I could help you do some things. You don't need to thank me. I didn't really thank you before as well. Oh, that's true. Yimo laughed and put the map and plastic back into the ditch and buried the bones again. When Yimo carried Qi Wanqing back again, Guoqi and the others had already organized the battle loots. Qi Wanqing suddenly felt that the eyes with which her teammates looked at her were a bit different. She wanted to explain things but didn't know how to explain. Yimo put Qi Wanqing down and said, I need to go. Let's separate here. Huh, brother Yi, you're leaving? Hearing that Yimo was leaving them, Qi Wanqing suddenly felt a bit disappointed. Lu Lin looked at Qi Wanqing and suddenly said to Yimo, Yimo, once you leave, I will need to carry Wanqing. But when I can't, she will need Feng Wei and Guoqi to carry her. What's that got to do with me? Yimo just trailed off, feeling Qi Wanqing's imploring look. He remembered how she had helped him this time, and how without her, even if he could remember the characters, he wouldn't know where to find someone who can translate for him. He didn't have much to do now, so he might as well go with him for a bit longer. Thinking about this, Yimo said, Fine, in that case, I'll go with you guys for a bit longer. Wanqing, come on, let's move. Master, you call her in such an intimate way. Feng Wei walked over cheekily and said. Yimo swiped his hand and said, Stop, I never told you that I was going to take you in as my disciple. Hearing that Yimo was willing to go with her a bit longer, Qi Wanqing rejoiced and hummed in approval before immediately laying on Yimo's back without any hesitation. Sigh, Wanqing, at least be a bit more reserved. Look at you, you just got on straight away. What can I say about you? Lu Lin looked at her with a shaming glare. Yimo quickly said, Captain Lu, don't say random things, there's nothing between us. I only just knew her just like you guys. Qi Wanqing was blushing and didn't dare to talk. She asked herself what she was doing just then. However, Yimo was the first person of the opposite sex other than her father that gave her a good feeling. She had been in the military for 3 years, so what sort of elites haven't she seen? Yet, never had anyone been able to leave her any impression. But today, this Yimo, who she saw for the first time, was able to leave an impression in her heart. Although she was very cold to people, she wasn't a reserved person due to her family influence. She wasn't good at masquerading her emotions, or maybe she simply didn't want to. So if she felt good about someone, then she did, and if she didn't, she didn't. If she didn't have this personality, she wouldn't have had a big argument with her family and left for the military herself. Therefore, she was very happy that Yimo stayed. If Sister Lin didn't make him stop, she would have found a way to do so herself. When she was in university, her grandmother told her, do not miss the opportunity only to regret it in the future. Yimo's eyes were clear and didn't have those obscure intentions that she didn't like. The main thing was that Yimo saved her, and he seemed to be really strong. For Qi Wanqing, Yimo was a pearl hidden amongst the grass. Since she discovered him, there was no reason to reject the idea of pursuit. Although he seemed really desolate now, one day, he would soar high into the sky. Of course, this wasn't the main reason that she had a good feeling toward Yimo. It was mainly that Yimo had something on him that she longed for. This serenity, freedom, and this unexplainable spiritual cleanliness. She liked that feeling on him. It was something that couldn't be expressed with words. Knowing Qi Wanqing's cold personality, Guoqi didn't joke around with her even after Lu Lin said it. Guoqi was very respectful towards Yimo. In his eyes, Yimo was truly a man with great ability who kept a low profile. The forest between the borders of China and Yu was massive. Other than Captain Lu, who only carried Yimo's bag and felt that it was light, Guoqi and Feng Wei were all carrying tins of guns and the bone ashes of the two other squad members and were slightly struggling. They only walked for an hour or so before it was dusk and decided to camp for one night before leaving. Because Lu Lin and the others were ambushed, they had lost a lot of things while escaping. So now, only Yimo had a tent in his bag. This tent could only be given to Lu Lin and Qi Wanqing. Yimo and the other two could only sleep outside. However, Guoqi and Feng Nan were obviously experienced in outdoor survival. Soon, they cleared out a big patch of space and even set up a wooden tent. Chapter 60. Green-Eyed Small Snake. Chapter 60. Green-Eyed Small Snake. Elder Brother Yi, the tent is a bit shabby, but it's ready. At night, Xiang Feng and I will be responsible for night duties. How about you go in and have a rest first? Guoqi came out and said. Yimo smiled and said, no need, you can leave the night guard duty to me. I like it outside at night. By the way, Brother Gua, you're older than me, so just call me Yimo from now on. Yimo felt that Guoqi was a good person and valued team spirit, which made him want to be friends with him. He didn't like those heartless people. Okay, then I won't be too polite to you. However, you don't need to call me Brother Gua as well. The people in the army call me Qi. You can also call me that too. It's my honor to know you as a friend. No, I mean brother. What do you think, Brother Yi? Guoqi was a frank person and didn't hesitate. Yimo nodded and said, this is great. Thinking that Yimo was roasting rabbits in the forest leisurely, Guoqi didn't insist. After all these days, he indeed was tired and went to rest with Feng Wei. Inside the tent, Lu Lin looked at the contemplative Qi Wanqing and asked, Wanqing, what do you think of this, Yimo? Huh. Qi Wanqing, who was still immersed in her own thought, was caught off guard. But after her surprised exclamation, she quickly caught on and remained silent for a while before saying, I think Brother Yi is a good person. He's really powerful and has some kind of. Qi Wanqing repeated that for a long time but still didn't finish articulating the words. Some kind of feeling I long for. Wanqing, you've come to the military for about 3 years and of course, I know why you came. But when women get older they need to find some place to belong to, yet you've never shown a good face to any men in the military. 3 years ago, you were trying to avoid your father trying to marry you. Or perhaps it was due to your mother. However, it has been 3 years already. Are you really prepared to be like this for your entire life? Sometimes, when fortune comes, you must not reject it, Lu Lin sighed. After a few moments, she continued, that year, I just finished high school and was 19 years old, at the prime of my youth. I just started work at the state literacy department where I met him. He was a handsome man. Not just me, but the other girls in our department liked him. However, he was really nice to me. He asked me out multiple times and, half a year later, he even proposed to me. At that time, I was just 19 years old, and I didn't know what to do when a 27-year-old man proposed to me. Although I liked him very much, I could only tell him I was still so young and asked him to wait. Half a year later, on my 20th birthday, he proposed to me once again. I still wanted to wait because I really felt I was still young and didn't dare to form a family. However, from that day on, I never saw him again. He had left. I waited for another year but still haven't heard any news of him. At that time, I thought, as long as he appeared, I was willing to marry him immediately. However, he never appeared again, and I no longer had the will of working there again. So I came to the military. Wanqing, sometimes, there is only one chance. If you lose it, there will be no more. There's no wrong in trusting me. I've seen all sorts of people in the military. Yimo doesn't seem like a sly person. His eyes aren't dodgy, he's just a little poor. With your family wealth, would you really care if he was wealthy or poor? Besides, there is the adage of not looking down on a youth who is poor. I think that if you really liked wealthy families, you wouldn't have rejected your families well that time and came to the military. Lu Lin sighed contemplatively as if remembering what happened those years ago. Sister Lin, my feelings toward Brother Yi aren't what you say it is. My feelings are sigh. I don't know how to explain it. I'll go check on Brother Yi. After saying that, Qi Wanqing was preparing to walk out of the tent. Wanqing, you can walk on your leg now? Lu Lin pointed at Qi Wanqing's leg and said in surprise. Yes, actually after Brother Yi treated me, it wasn't long before I could walk. It was just that it would hurt after some time. Speaking up to here, Qi Wanqing seemed to have thought of something and didn't dare to continue speaking as she rushed outside. She suddenly felt a burning sensation on her face as though she had been caught out. Seeing Qi Wanqing running out of the tent, Lu Lin seemed to be lost in thought. Wanqing looked like herself all those years ago, but Yimo didn't seem like the man she met at all. At this moment, Yimo was sitting on a rock not far away, contemplating. He was using his spirit sense to make out the map he saw today. Yimo had thought of the lines on the map countless times. Gathered with the words Qi Wanqing helped him interpret today, it was indeed the Taklamakan Desert. Although he hadn't been there yet, he had analyzed the map of China closely and roughly knew the main regions. However, he really had no idea where the Ku Lake was, and even what that holy door was supposed to be. He knew clearly about the purple heart vine. It was a spirit wood that was used in many of the pills used during the Qi gathering state. Although it didn't have strict growth conditions, it would definitely not grow in the desert because the most important condition for the growth of these types of spirit wood was water. The Taklamakan Desert was the biggest desert in China, and its average yearly precipitation was less than 100 millimeters. During the worst years, there were barely a few millimeters of water. Although Yimo was deep in thought, he knew immediately when Qi Wanqing came out. He smiled and thought that even though the girl looked cold, she seemed to be growing on him. Just when Qi Wanqing didn't know how to speak to Yimo, she saw him turning around, smiling at her, which relieved her as she quickly walked up to him. However, when Qi Wanqing walked behind Yimo, her face suddenly changed. A gray snake with a pair of eyes that flashed green lights was actually charging toward Yimo from behind him. Not good. Qi Wanqing heard that triangular-headed snakes were poisonous. However, this snake was not only triangular-headed but a sharp triangular. Without even thinking, Qi Wanqing jumped toward Yimo's back. The moment the green-eyed, triangular-headed snake attacked, Yimo felt it. If Qi Wanqing didn't charge over, he had a way to avoid it. But now if he wanted to drag Qi Wanqing out of the way too, that would be impossible. The green-eyed snake almost arrived at the same time as Qi Wanqing. She was just behind Yimo, while this green-eyed snake came from a few meters away, yet they would arrive at the same time. From this, it could be seen how fast this snake was. The gray snake accurately bit Qi Wanqing's back, which shocked Yimo, but he wasn't too worried as he thought that he could cure a poisonous snake bite. He turned and carried Qi Wanqing in his arms. Yimo saw the green-eyed snake posed not far away, wanting to attack a second time, and appeared to be targeting him this time. Anger surged up in Yimo as he raised his hand, and 3 metal nails flew out. Slip, slip. Unfortunately, none of the nails managed to pierce the snake's head. 2 of them glided off from its skin, and only one managed to scratch out a bloody gash. The green-eyed snake seemed to recognize that this person wasn't easy to mess with and slithered away, disappearing almost immediately. Not good. This wasn't just a simple snake. Yimo realized it as Qi Wanqing's face had already become gray. Such intense poison. Yimo knew things were growing dire. At this moment, Lu Lin and Guoqi were already coming his way. Seeing the situation, they all knew that a venomous snake had bitten Qi Wanqing. Chapter 61. Was it just to repay a debt of gratitude? Chapter 61. Was it just to repay a debt of gratitude? I will save her. You guys take care. This type of snake wouldn't attack you. Then, Yimo took Qi Wanqing and rushed into the tent. Yimo knew that it wasn't a snake. It was called a bear cockroach. It looked like a snake, but it had 4 legs, and its eyes had a green glow in the dark, just like a wolf. Bear cockroaches were not only extremely fast, but ordinary people couldn't see them at all. Besides, their skin was abnormally tough, and normal attacks wouldn't do any damage to them at all. Moreover, the crucial point was that the bear cockroach was extremely venomous and couldn't compare to any other normal venom. The adult bear cockroach would eventually grow a pair of wings, so this one was obviously still in its adolescent state. However, what surprised Emo the most was to actually find a bear cockroach on this earth scarce of spirit. The bear cockroach wouldn't attack normal humans. They are only sensitive to plants and things that contain spirit chi because this type of animal only love to devour anything containing spirit chi. Emo immediately pulled down Chi Wanqing's top, but at this moment, he really didn't have time to worry about other things. Chi Wanqing had 2 holes from the bite on her back. The black chi had formed a line going up, making it oddly clear on Chi Wanqing's back. Emo used his cultivated chi to push out the venomous blood before taking out some herbs, and using his cultivated chi to help her digest the herbs. The poison was finally under control, but Emo knew that this was only a temporary measure. If the venom couldn't be completely removed, Chi Wanqing still wouldn't be able to survive even for an hour. But what could treat her? Emo turned Chi Wanqing over, allowing her to lay in his arms while he was worried, thinking of a way to treat her. Chi Wanqing was still unconscious, and although the gray on her face didn't get any deeper, it was still quite obvious. Bear cockroaches like to devour spirit plants, and the people they bit were not only poisoned, but would also lose their essence. It was just like life essence. If a person's life essence completely dissipated, they wouldn't be able to live long even if the poison was cured. Chi Wanqing's case was a typical example of life force gradually dissipating. Even if he forced all the poison out of her body, she wouldn't be able to live. If it was in the cultivation realm, then any spirit pills could cure her, but here, there weren't even spirit herbs, much less spirit pills. Regardless of whether or not she helped him, Chi Wanqing was bitten because of him. If Emo couldn't save her, his heart wouldn't be at rest. Besides, he had a good impression of Chi Wanqing. If only there were a spirit herb. If there was one, he could use it to recover her life essence, but unfortunately, his silver heart grass was gone, and the ones he just grew hadn't even germinated yet. After a brief moment, he remembered the section of purple heart vine he had obtained recently and thought that he might still be able to cure Chi Wanqing using it. Thinking that his lucky meeting with a small section of a purple heart vine was going to be eaten by Chi Wanqing, Emo was a bit unwilling to give it up. After all, if the silver heart grass couldn't be successfully grown, this vine would be of great use to him. However, thinking about how Chi Wanqing was in this state because of him, Emo still decided to use the purple heart vine. Anyway, could he really watch her die and not save her when he had the means to? If Shuaigua didn't mind giving this plant to him, why couldn't he, Emo, give it to others? Was he, Emo, a status higher than others? Thinking about this, Emo felt ashamed of himself. Just when Emo took out the purple heart vine and was thinking of a way to turn it into a serum for Chi Wanqing, he suddenly remembered that he had only eaten the silver heart grass for around a month. There would definitely still be some of the medicinal powers of the silver heart grass remaining in his blood. Plus, even if it wasn't the case, he was a cultivator, and there were constantly spirit chi in his blood, so it might even have a better effect than the purple heart vine. After all, Chi Wanqing couldn't straight up digest the purple heart vine, and she still needed Yemo's help in digestion, which was too troublesome. Thinking about this, Yemo slit his wrist without hesitation and directed the flow of blood toward Chi Wanqing's mouth. At the same time, he used his cultivated chi to help Chi Wanqing digest the medicinal powers of his blood. Chi Wanqing's face gradually returned to normal with visible speed. The black lines withdrew along the original track and spurted out from the wound on her back. The black blood was gradually flowing out of the wound until it started turning red. Yemo felt relieved that it had worked. It seemed that the medicinal powers of the silver heart grass were not completely digested by his body. Chi Wanqing suddenly felt a weird taste and opened her eyes. However, she saw Yemo's wrist trickling blood, and it was directly flowing into her mouth. It scared Chi Wanqing and made her scream as she hurriedly pushed Yemo's wrist away. As Yemo saw that Chi Wanqing was awake, and the venom of the bear cockroach had been cured, he also stopped the blood from flowing from his wrist. Brother Yi, you made me drink. Drink your. Qi Wanqing didn't dare to finish her sentence in shock. Yimo smiled and said, It's all right. I often go to the hospital to donate blood. You had lost some blood, so it was necessary for me to donate some blood to you, so you don't need to worry about it. Perhaps I will need blood one day, and you can donate some for me as well. Yimo made it sound simple. It would be too complicated to tell her that there was some part of the silver heart grass remaining in his blood. Besides, she probably wouldn't understand these things that involved life essence and spirit qi, although Qi Wanqing didn't react to the situation in time. She knew that being bitten by a snake shouldn't result in loss of blood. Furthermore, even if it was blood donation, it shouldn't be donated in such a way. She felt touched by Yimo donating blood to her. However, she forgot that she received this wound due to Yimo. Thank you, Brother Yi. Qi Wanqing moved a little and now realized that she was still in Yimo's arms. Her face immediately grew hot. Yimo also realized the situation and hurriedly put Qi Wanqing down. You're fine now. Rest up for a while. That thing is very poisonous. I'll go look for it later. Yimo had a reason to search for that bear cockroach. Since there was a bear cockroach here, it meant that there might be some spirit herbs nearby, and besides, it was too rare to find a bear cockroach on Earth. This thing only usually appeared near places of dense spirit qi. However, Earth's spirit qi was relatively scarce. Seeing that Qi Wanqing's complexion returned to normal, Yimo reminded her, Don't do something so dangerous next time. Did you know that I almost wasn't able to save you this time? Yimo's meaning was that this all could have been avoided. If Qi Wanqing didn't charge over, the bear cockroach wouldn't have been able to land an attack on him. But if he had said this, it would seem a bit hurtful. After all, Qi Wanqing was trying to save him and didn't know that Yimo could dodge it. No, if it happened again, I would still stop it. If you are poisoned, then it's all over. But if I am, you might still be able to save me. Although Qi Wanqing's voice was low, it was very firm. Yimo was stunned for a moment and felt touched. Then, he immediately said, Nincompoop, if you are poisoned, I may not be able to save you. Today was very dangerous. You need to remember that next time. What if I couldn't save you? Qi Wanqing shook her head. Brother Yi, I don't understand these things. You saved me. I just don't want you to be bitten from the bottom of my heart. Even if you can't save me, I would still do it if something similar happened again. As if scared of Yimo's reproach, her voice was getting smaller and smaller. Yimo sighed as he thought that this girl was really giving people a headache. He even doubted if he made the right choice in staying longer with them. Qi Wanqing's feelings towards him didn't seem to be as simple as repaying gratitude. Chapter 62. Why be used by her? Chapter 62. Why be used by her? When Yimo and Qi Wanqing came out, Lu Lin and the others had been worried sick waiting. They were relieved after seeing both coming out. This six-man squad had already lost 2 members. If they lost Qi Wanqing here as well, it would be tragic. Besides, Qi Wanqing's identity wasn't ordinary. If something happened, Lu Lin's superior wouldn't be able to shoulder the consequences, much less Lu Lin. Luckily, they were fine now. Captain Lu, you guys rest for a bit first. I'm going to leave for a while. Yimo didn't wait for the others' reply, and just went straight into the forest since he was interested in this bear cockroach. Usually, where the bear cockroach appeared, there were things like spirit herbs, and even if he couldn't find spirit herbs, it would still be good to capture this bear cockroach. Although bear cockroaches weren't spiritual beasts, it could bond with a master because it possessed some self-awareness, unlike other wild beasts that could only be kept as trained animals. Although this bear cockroach was useless to him, he could capture it and give it to Qi Wanqing. Qi Wanqing almost lost her life trying to save him just then. It was appropriate to find her a pet. Brother Yi, wait for me, I'll go with you. Qi Wanqing grabbed a torch and suddenly followed him. Guo Qi was just about to stop Qi Wanqing but was pulled by Lu Lin. Didn't you see that Qi Wanqing's is quite stuck to Yimo? Her cold personality is because of her family, but Yimo isn't an ordinary person, so he should be able to take care of Qi Wanqing. Don't stop her. Lu Lin paused for a moment then continued. If someone like Yimo could join our Eagle Hunter squad, There wouldn't be a squad in the entire army that could triumph against us. Guoqi shook his head. You said it yourself that he isn't an ordinary person, so I'm certain that he definitely won't join the army. Furthermore, I feel like he isn't someone who likes to be restrained, and perhaps only freedom is best suited for him. After pausing for a moment, Guoqi continued, he may seem to wear simple clothes and is very casual in his mannerism. However, I believe that he is a proud person. Although his pride isn't like ordinary people's pride, which is shown on their face or hidden in their hearts, it is natural. He neither flaunts it nor conceals it. Perhaps even the wealthiest of second-generation youngsters, clad in their best designer garments, would feel inferior, like a mere side character, standing next to him. Brother Fong, how are you even able to get someone as strong as him to help us? Fong Wei asked with admiration. Ever since Yimo saved him, he had a great admiration for him and constantly wanted to become his disciple. Guoqi smiled and simply answered, I just said that we're all Chinese people, and just like that he agreed. Brother Yi, wait for me. Qi Wanqing called out and followed. Yimo stopped and looked at Qi Wanqing. Why did you come over? This place is quite dark, and the moon isn't especially bright tonight, so it is still quite dangerous here. I'm going out to find something, but I'm coming back later. Your wound just healed. Why did you come over? Hurry and go back. Brother Yi, I guess that you definitely won't join our squad afterwards, so when you leave, I wouldn't know when I would be able to see you again. I want to stay with you for a little while longer. Perhaps due to never having any friends of the opposite sex, Qi Wanqing was greatly dependent on Yimo, who had saved her life twice in a single day. Yimo was astonished for a moment. He felt that Qi Wanqing was over-reliant on him, which didn't suit her identity as a soldier. Perhaps she went to the army due to other reasons, but he didn't want to ask about that at this point. He just wanted to say, idiot, I can come back and see you later. But when the words came to his mouth, he stopped. Would he really come back to see her after he left? That was impossible. His and Qi Wanqing's path were completely different. They had no intersections in life. How could they see each other again? Thinking about this, Yimo sighed and said, Fine, follow me then. After all, if he really captured the bear cockroach, he was going to give it to Qi Wanqing, and he had to make the ownership bond with Qi Wanqing. Thanks, Brother Yi. Then, she excitedly grabbed Yimo's arm, and Yimo simply shook his head. Qi Wanqing was obviously still a naive girl, so it should have been really hard for her to come to the army and keep a cold face on every day. Perhaps, school life was the most suitable for her. How many years have you been in the army? Why don't you go to school anymore? Yimo asked. In my second year of university, my grandpa forced me to marry a person I didn't like. I refused, but that person came to my school, and when I tried to speak about it to my father, he actually agreed with grandpa. So, I ran out secretly to find Uncle Jiang and joined the army. I never went back again, Qi Wanqing said dejectedly. Yimo was speechless. Why did these people all like to use marriage to strengthen their power? No matter where it was, these things continued to happen. But you can't stay in the army for your whole life, can you? When you go back, you will still be forced into decisions by your dad and granddad, Yimo said. I don't want to go back. My mom often comes to see me, and she also helped me open. Qi Wanqing shut her mouth just in time. She almost said that the company she wanted Yimo to go earlier was hers and not her cousin. Then, she suddenly asked, Brother Yi, someone as outstanding as you should have a girlfriend already, right? Yimo smiled as he said, I'm a jobless wandering person. How can I be outstanding? Girlfriend? I don't have one, but I do have a wife, hee. You're married. Qi Wanqing suddenly felt hollow in her heart, a sudden sense of loss that just couldn't be described. Yimo didn't notice Qi Wanqing's state and explained, she should be about the same as you. She didn't want to marry someone else, so she faked her marriage to me. I'm just helping her out. If one day you want me to help you, I would be happy to do so. Yimo laughed at himself. What? Brother Yi, you have a fake marriage, and that woman is using you? How could there be such a bad woman? Qi Wanqing immediately felt indignant upon hearing this. A woman would even use someone like Brother Yi, she thought and said, Brother Yi, why would you let yourself be used by her? Just ignore such women. Why be used by her? Yemo's complexion suddenly seemed gloomy. He thought about his poor master Luoying and didn't know how she was doing now. As long as there was the slightest sliver of Luo Ying's image, he was willing to be used. The reason he helped Ning Qingxue might be hidden in the depth of his heart, but he hoped that if one day his master was in trouble, there would be someone like him willing to help her. Sorry, Brother Yi, I won't ask you. Qi Wanqing saw Yemo's look of melancholy and immediately understood that he must have had some special reason to do so. Yemo was surprised as he bent over and looked at a mushroom that was partly consumed. There really was spirit herbs here. Although the mushrooms weren't spirit herbs, they still contained small amounts of spirit qi which seemed to have attracted the bear cockroach. What's wrong, Brother Yi? Qi Wanqing saw Yemo stop and asked. Don't say a word. I can already see it. Yemo's spirit sense locked onto the bear cockroach a few meters away. It had also obviously noticed Yemo. However, it didn't move, as it seemed to be sure that Yemo wouldn't be able to discover him no matter what and therefore wasn't scared. Chapter 63. Departure. Chapter 63. Departure. Wanqing, come to my left side. Yemo made Qi Wanqing move to his left side because the right side was where the bear cockroach was hiding. This guy was hiding under a rock with his eyes staring at Yemo and Qi Wanqing. Not only did he not escape, but he was instead trying to find an opportunity to attack Yemo. Of course, Qi Wanqing didn't know what Yemo had meant, but since Yemo told her to go left, she immediately went on the other side. Yemo knew that the bear cockroach was sly, so he pulled Qi Wanqing, pretending not to see it moving past by its side. The bear cockroach saw Yemo showing his back, so it slowly moved closer toward him and was prepared to suddenly attack him when he was the closest possible to its position. Why being so careful? Qi Wanqing asked quietly. Yemo didn't answer but suddenly turned and made a grabbing move with his hands in midair. His movements were extremely fast, so much so that Qi Wanqing wasn't even able to react. Gee! With a sharp shriek, the bear cockroach that jumped and attacked Yemo was caught in his hands in midair, as though it had placed itself there. If Yemo didn't use some qi in his hands, he really wouldn't have been able to catch this fast creature. Feeling the intense struggle of the bear cockroach, Yemo immediately said, Wanqing, hurry up and bite open the tip of your finger. Quick! This thing is really strong. The bear cockroach knew it was tricked and struggled more fiercely. If he didn't catch it with his own hands, Yemo definitely wouldn't have thought that it could have such power, and this was only a young bear cockroach. Qi Wanqing saw the green eye and immediately felt scared. Cold sweat trickled down her body. She wasn't really scared about herself, but about Yemo getting bitten. However, hearing Yemo's yell, she quickly reacted and, although she didn't know the reason why, she still quickly bit open her finger. Meanwhile, Yemo took out a knife and slit open a gash in the middle of its head. As blood trickled out, Yemo held Qi Wanqing's finger and dropped the blood from her fingertip into the gash. His hands continuously made different hand signs, as though he was using some magical art on the little snake-like creature. Qi Wanqing looked at Yemo's actions in shock and didn't dare to speak. She could already see the sweat beads trickle from Yemo's forehead and wanted to wipe them for Yemo, but she was scared that she would interrupt him, especially since she had no idea what Yemo was doing. His hand gesture seemed mysterious as though it was mystical. However, Qi Wanqing believed in him. The struggling bear cockroach gradually calmed down before eventually stopping. After being dropped by Yemo, it immediately ran towards Qi Wanqing's feet. But not only that, it even used its sharp head and rubbed itself against Qi Wanqing's shoe as though a sign of intimacy. Chapter 64. Yemo's Rage. Chapter 64. Yemo's Rage. When Yemo went back to flowing snake by himself, his speed was a lot faster. Even adding the time when he had to go out of his way to collect some herbs, he only spent 3 days to get back to his temporary residence in Flowing Snake. However, the scene that entered his eyes as he arrived infuriated him. It had only been 20 days, but his place had been ruined. The walls were broken everywhere, but the most important part was the patch of land where he had plowed to grow his silver heart grass was utterly destroyed. Crack! Yemo kicked a large rock with his feet and, using his chi, the rock was actually shattered into countless pieces. His most valuable possession was the silver heart grass, and he had tried to cultivate 19 seeds here. However, this place had been decimated just like this. What was Fong Nan doing? Just when Yemo was prepared to look for an explanation from Fong Nan, a person quickly ran over. This individual had seen Yemo standing in front of the ragged pagoda and hurried over and respectfully said, "Brother Yi, Brother Nan made me wait here for you. You're finally back." This was a youth in his 20s, and Yemo still remembered him. He was called Rock and was the one who stood behind Fong Nan when Yemo first went to see him. Yemo suppressed the anger inside his heart. The silver heart grass was more important than anything, but now, half of it was gone. How could he not be angry? However, he wasn't a person to go into a tantrum before fully understanding the situation, but someone will pay with his life for his silver heart grass. Seeing the dark look on Yemo's face, he quickly said, "Brother Yi, after you left, Brother Nan and another big gang in Flowing Snake, the Yu Gang, fought over the distribution of benefits of those left behind by the 13 turbos. Originally, Brother Nan wouldn't be afraid of the Yu Gang. However, the Yu Gang went against the rules and rallied with the Fei Gang to ambush our Pu Dao clan. Brother Nan was heavily wounded and taken here by our brothers to recover. However, he was still attacked by the Yu and Fei Gang. In the end, only a few brothers and Nong Brother made it out. Nong Brother told me to wait here for Brother Yi to apologize to you." Yemo listened through Rock's words with a pale face, not replying for a long time. He understood that if Fong Nan didn't come here, perhaps his silver heart grass wouldn't have been destroyed. So maybe Fong Nan was using this method to force Yemo to help him out. If Fong Nan was actually trying to make Yemo angry at the Yu Gang so he would destroy them, then he really wouldn't mind annihilating Pu Dao clan too. Yemo walked into the yard. That patch of land was trampled all over, but Yemo still managed to find a few seeds. Seeing those seeds made Yemo calmer. However, he realized that even if that event didn't happen, he wouldn't be able to grow the silver heart grass here because the few seeds he had found were all rotten and didn't have any signs of germination. It seemed that this silver heart grass could only be cultivated in certain places. He didn't even know why the place he had been living at before could grow a silver heart grass. "Take me to Fong Nan." Yemo turned around and said coldly to Rock. His face had returned to complete calm. Fong Nan was extremely devastated right now and was hiding in a far-off cave. Including Rock, only 6 people were remaining. As he saw Yemo walking in, Fong Nan struggled to get up with a face filled with guilt. From Yemo's attitude toward the place, he could see how important it was for him. Yet not only was he unable to guard it, but the place was also destroyed because of him. If something similar were to happen again, he would never allow his brothers to take him there to hide. Seeing Fong Nan struggling to get up with guilt in his eyes, Yemo only waved his hand. "This isn't your fault. Let me have a look at your wound first." Fong Nan had been injured during a gunfight. Although he was shot twice, it was not a problem for Yemo to heal him at all, and, in less than half an hour, he had already treated Fong Nan's wounds completely. "I'm going to have a look around Flowing Snake to see who destroyed my stuff. You can rest up here in the meantime. You will be able to return to Flowing Snake at night." When he saw that Fong Nan was better, Yemo stood up and, as he was about to leave, the tone he expressed himself with made everyone who heard him frigid. Fong Nan immediately said, "Brother Yi, this thing was caused by me, so even if I die, I can't let you go to Flowing Snake while I sleep here." Yemo smiled faintly. "In that case, you can come with me." To him, these gangs formed by desperados really didn't have nothing to do with him. There wouldn't be a problem even if Fong Nan came with him. Flowing Snake. Inside the semicircle stone house that originally belonged to Fong Nan, the Yu Gang and the Fei Gang that had encircled the border of China were also here. The big boss of the Yu Gang spoke in a fluent Chinese. "I've long despised that Fong Nan from the Pu Dao clan. Although we didn't manage to kill him, we kicked him out of Flowing Snake this time, which makes me feel at ease. We were really fortunate to have Boss Pu this time. Come, with this glass, I now represent the Yu Gang to toast in your honor. All right, but we will also be living in Flowing Snake in the future, and we hope Supreme Chancellor Wang will help us out a little. The boss of the Fei Gang, sitting on the opposite side of the Yu Gang with black skin. Although he was speaking Chinese, he was stuttering a little. He obviously knew that he wouldn't be able to live at Flowing Snake if he couldn't even speak Chinese. Supreme Chancellor Wang smiled and replied, "No worries, no worries. We each take half of the land and business left behind by Fong Nan since it is what we had already agreed beforehand." This Supreme Chancellor Wang was the leader of the Yu Gang, Wang Xian. He didn't like to be referred to as gang leader, and instead preferred the title Supreme Chancellor. Under such discussions, the atmosphere in the room was extremely cheerful. Thud, thud. However, two discordant sounds disrupted the scene as two bodies fell on the table where the two gang leaders had just drunk a toast. These were the bodies of the two guards outside. In that instant, the entire room became deadly silent. Yet quickly the tens of people in the room reacted and started flourishing their weapons, preparing for the upcoming battle. "Who are you? Why did you kill my men for no reason?" Supreme Chancellor Wang had his hands on his pistol. No matter what, this person killed his men, so he was going to make him pay for it. EMO sneered and scanned the people in the room. There were about 40 to 50 people, with more than 10 people with a black skin and 2 were white. After taking a glance at the people in the room, he simply asked, "Did you destroy the temple I was living at?" He actually came for a broken-down pagoda? The face of Supreme Chancellor Wang darkened and pulled out his hand as he yelled, "Brothers, fire! Finish this son of AB*TCH. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.